These are 10 pieces of evidence that aliens exist. Number 1 is the Drake equation. One of the most compelling arguments that alien life exists is the Drake equation. In 1961, renowned astronomer and astrophysicist Frank Drake developed this equation in order to estimate just how likely it is that we aren't alone in the universe. The formula considers a bunch of different factors, like how many stars have solar systems, the number of planets that could support life, how long these planets live, and how much of that life could be intelligent. The equation was tested in 2001 using our own galaxy, the Milky Way, and the results were pretty impressive. There are 160 billion planets just in the Milky Way galaxy, and the study found that, statistically speaking, hundreds of thousands of them could support life, meaning that intelligent alien life is mathematically highly probable and will probably be much closer than we think. Number 2 is Project Sign. Project Sign was an official study under the United States Air Force to investigate UFOs. The study ran from 1948 to 1949, but it was kept secret for years. The investigations undertaken by the project were intended to debunk speculation that UFOs were extraterrestrial, but of the nearly 13,000 sightings that were studied, 701 of them couldn't be chalked up to weird weather or human-made objects. In the end, the government had to classify them as unidentified. The final report, titled The Estimate of the Situation, was supposedly written by the project's director, Robert Schneider, and supported the extraterrestrial hypothesis, even though higher-ups rejected it. It wasn't until 1956 that its existence was revealed in retired Air Force Captain Edward J. Ruppelt's memoir, and in 1961, its findings were finally declassified. Project Grudge, Project Blue Book, and all studies supposedly ended by 1970. Number 3 are crop circles. Reports of these mysterious markings date all the way back to the 1500s and have become a cultural phenomenon. Some reports suggest that nearly 80% of crop circles can be considered man-made, but that still leaves a good 20% whose origins cannot be explained. They tend to appear in fields of corn or wheat, where the crop's stalks are long enough to be bent. Farmers have reported that they appeared in the middle of the night and seemed to be created within minutes, even though they never heard or saw a thing. Theorists believe that aliens could be responsible and that the markings are a form of communication or imprints left from UFO landings. A major reason for this is the precision with which the crops are bent into elaborate designs without damaging or breaking the stalks, suggesting the precision at which this is accomplished may be beyond human ability. Number 4 is Area 51. The CIA didn't officially acknowledge the existence of Area 51 until August of 2013. Located in the Nevada desert, the base was likely built during World War II as an airfield and used in the 1960s during the Cold War. We now know that many state-of-the-art fighter jets and drones were designed and built there, but many believe that the base is actually an elaborate cover for UFO and alien research. The extremely classified nature of Area 51 makes it an ideal place to study alien technology and to store crashed UFOs. In 2010, ufologist Scott Waring was able to use Google Maps to spot a UFO resembling the Millennium Falcon partially hidden in a massive hangar on the base. Suspiciously, once he made his findings public and gave directions on how to find the images, they disappeared and the coordinates stopped working. Today, there are still signs all around Area 51 warning against trespassing, even threatening lethal force. Number 5 are the Nazca Lines. The Nazca Lines in southern Peru were created by the Nazca people between 500 BC and 400 AD and are made up of thousands of lines forming 300 geoglyphs. They spread over an area of 386 square miles and consist of massive designs and motifs of various figures like fish, birds, and monkeys, and are up to 1,050 feet long. The most famous of the Nazca Lions are known as the astronaut, a humanoid figure with a giant head and eyes. In 1994, the area was designated as an official UNESCO World Heritage Site, but no one really knows why the lions were made. Given their huge size and scale, most researchers believe that they were meant to be viewed and possibly even designed from the sky. It's very possible that the geoglyphs could only have been formed from instructions from a flying object, especially considering the mountainous terrain where the lions were made. Number 6 is life on Mars. Colonizing Mars has been a dream of those who look up at the stars ever since we first landed on the moon. But soon, people started to consider what else might be possible. Much has been invested in studying and exploring Mars because it's the closest planet to Earth with a similar environment. We've known for a while that there used to be water on Mars, which means that microorganisms could have been there the whole time. But it was only recently discovered that roughly 4.5 billion years ago, 1/5 of the planet was covered in a massive ocean. This is 200 million years longer than scientists thought, giving life plenty of time to develop, which could still be hidden deep in the red planet's soil. And it's not much of a stretch to think of Martian life as a recent occurrence. To put it into perspective, life on Earth was just developing while there were still lakes on Mars. Clearly, there was much that has happened before us. Number 7 is Men in Black. For decades, there have been reports of real-life Men in Black turning up after UFO sightings and scaring witnesses into keeping quiet. There are reports of men who always travel in twos who are cold, expressionless, and perhaps even sinister. On May 15, 2009, surveillance video caught 2 suspected MIB entering the lobby of a hotel in Niagara Falls, Canada. The men claimed to be government agents and spent over half an hour questioning members of the hotel staff who had reported seeing a UFO 7 months earlier. It seems crazy that a movie about CIA agents investigating aliens could be based on reality, but there are many conspiracy theories that there are branches of the government unknown to the public. The men were described as being practically identical, same height, wearing matching black hats and suits with no eyebrows and totally bald. Number 8 is life not as we know it. It's assumed that for living organisms to develop, they would need the same environmental conditions as we have on Earth, primarily oxygen, water, and lots of time to grow. But as sci-fi writer Isaac Asimov theorized, when we discover alien life, it might not actually be as we know it. This perspective inspired researchers at Cornell University to reimagine the ways life could form on another planet, and they didn't have to look far for evidence. Saturn's largest moon, Titan, is the only other place in our solar system that has lakes on its surface. But these lakes aren't water, they're liquid methane. It's a cold, harsh environment, but methane has a much lower freezing point than water, which would give life more time to develop. These theoretical organisms would be methane-based and oxygen-free. The Cornell team are still researching, but they believe that it's the first concrete blueprint for life not as we know it. Number 9 is the Walton abduction. One of the most well-known and documented alien abductions happened to lumber worker Travis Walton on November 5th, 1975. Around 6:10 p.m., just after finishing up work in the New Mexico National Forest job that he had, Walton was riding in a truck with 6 of his co-workers when they saw a large saucer-shaped aircraft hovering in the trees. The UFO was less than 112 feet away when Walton decided to get out of his truck for a closer look. As he approached, a beam of light shot out of the sky and he disappeared. Police were skeptical of his co-workers' claims and thought that they were covering up his murder. But 5 days later, Walton reappeared around midnight, walking around the highway totally disoriented. He thought he'd only been gone for a few hours, but he reported remembering being on the table in a hospital-like room with 3 hairless creatures that were performing experiments on him. And number 10 is the Chiles-Whitted UFO encounter. At 2:45 a.m. on July 24, 1948, World War II veterans turned commercial pilots Clarence Chiles and John Whitted were flying over Alabama when they saw a red glowing object above and ahead of them. Within seconds, the UFO flew past them at a high speed before pulling up and disappearing into thin air. The maneuver was impossible for any known aircrafts to perform, especially of that size. Chiles and Whitted reported that this thing was massive, claiming that it was tube-shaped without wings, nearly 115 feet long, and 3 times the circumference of their B-29 bomber. It also had 2 rows of brightly lit windows and flames bursting out of the back end as it accelerated. Project Sign carried out a huge top-secret investigation, but they were never able to identify the UFO as any known plane, jet, or military-grade flying object, as it was officially classified as an alien aircraft. I guess you never really know what you're looking at when you look into the sky. Number 10 are the Apollo tapes. The Apollo space program ran from 1960 until 1972. Its aim was simple: to put a human being on the moon and to unlock the secrets of our nearest celestial neighbor. In fact, when we did finally land on the moon in 1969, it was seen as the greatest technological advancement since human beings had discovered fire. Why then are many of the tapes which documented this incredible journey missing or destroyed? You'd think that those involved in the space program would want to capture their achievements for future generations. Some believe that the reason the tapes are missing is because they hint at a difficult truth. 2 possibilities have been presented: that the tapes contain evidence that the moon mission was a hoax, or more tantalizingly, they include footage of a rumored alien encounter in the depths of space. Number 9 is STS-80. Hundreds of manned space missions have taken place over the last few decades. Most of them were to lower orbits where astronauts would repair satellites or carry out work on the International Space Station. During these missions, cameras have captured strange anomalies. These include objects which move as though they are being controlled by an intelligence. Astronauts were there to deploy orbital equipment, including 2 satellites, but their cameras inadvertently picked up bright objects which moved in the distance. Unlike any piece of debris, these objects seem to change orientation, something debris should not be able to do. What they were, no one is sure, but it's certainly a topic which some NASA officials continue to evade. Number 8 is Gemini 4.
I think I'm dragging a little bit, so I don't want to fire the gun.
During the Gemini 4 mission in 1965, which was NASA's second manned spaceflight, pilot Jim McDivitt was shocked to see a strange object in the distance, set against the blackness of space. The object was cylindrical, with a long pole sticking out from one corner. McDivitt himself was non-committal about it, not knowing exactly what he had seen, but there was film footage taken at other points during the mission, so the fact that alleged footage of such a singular encounter is missing seems eerily suspicious. Number 7 is Apollo 10. Apollo 10 was the first moon mission to have a color TV camera on board, as opposed to an 8mm film camera. Just as the 1969 spacecraft was heading into the dark side of the moon, where the crew would be out of radio contact for an hour, they began to complain about hearing strange music coming from somewhere.
I didn't mean to keep it sound counter spacey, didn't it? Do you hear that? That whistling sound?
They also captured an anonymous white object flying in the opposite direction of the command service module, which remains unexplained. Many argue that if it had been debris from the craft, it would have been traveling in the same direction. So what was it? And why did the crew of Apollo 10 avoid the topic of the strange music that they heard up there? The existing audio tapes show that this happened, but few wish to officially acknowledge them. Number 6 is Gemini 7.
Go. 5.
Transcripts from the Gemini 7 mission in 1965 point to the tantalizing possibility that NASA covered up an encounter between the crew and a mysterious object. Given that footage was filmed during Gemini 7, this also suggests that existing film footage of this encounter may actually exist and has been hidden for an unknown reason.
Last cleared. 7, go ahead.
Approaching at 10 o'clock high.
This is Houston. Say again, 7.
Approaching at 10 o'clock high.
Astronauts aboard the Gemini 7 spacecraft not only alerted ground crew that there was an unusual object following them, but they referred to it specifically as a bogey, which is the term used in the Air Force when describing an enemy aircraft. While some have suggested that this enemy craft was the booster segment of the mission, others have declared that theory to have been debunked, which opens the door to the possibility that Gemini 7 was being intercepted by a craft of extraterrestrial origin. Number 5 are the lost years. We have meticulous records surrounding the NASA space program. We know when each milestone was reached. Whether it was the first American manned spaceflight or when Neil Armstrong first stepped onto the lunar surface, there's film footage of it. But some argue that this account is only half of the story, the tip of a dark and concealed iceberg. One theory states that alongside the public missions, there were a series of earlier, secret ones, which were sent to test out new technology and explore the vastness of space. One of the reasons put forward for this is that the US government did not want their space program to publicly fail during a propaganda war with the Soviet Union. Instead, these earlier missions were carried out in secret, no doubt filmed just as meticulously. The question is, just what happened to those tapes? Number 4 is STS-48.
Go. 5.
STS-48 was a space shuttle mission which launched on September 15, 1991. Its primary objective was to launch an upper atmosphere research satellite. After 81 revolutions of the Earth and 2.2 million miles later, the shuttle completed its mission, but not before its cameras captured unbelievable footage. The footage clearly shows several objects flying in what appears to be a controlled trajectory. This formulation was unlike anything the astronauts had ever seen before. One of the objects performs an about turn and alters its speed and direction at the same time. This footage was soon released, though many believe this is because it had already been intercepted by amateur decoders on the ground. Several explanations for the STS-48 footage have been proposed, but none of them have been robust enough to remove the mystery. Number 3 is the Mars redacted footage.
Go. 5.
It's difficult to understand why space exploration stalled for so long after Apollo 17. Space technology had progressed quickly, taking humanity from unmanned space satellites to standing on the moon in a short time. The official explanation is that public interest in the space race fell, and so investment in it dried up. However, there are rumors of secret missions which took place after Apollo 17. One of the most infamous is a rumored mission to Mars itself. Whispers continue that NASA crews traveled to the Red Planet, taking with them a variety of experiments and camera equipment. Some of this has been leaked online, with out-of-focus film footage allegedly showing the crew in orbit. Of course, NASA denies this, but nevertheless, if they did indeed go secretly to Mars, what did they find there? Number 2 is the Engineer's Archive. In 2005, a man whose identity was protected passed away. In his basement, his wife found 325 data reels and 2 huge computers dating back to the early space program through the 1970s. Over 100 of the tapes were labeled, and some of the labeling remains a mystery. For example, one tape covered data from the Pioneer 11 mission, which launched in 1973, but this tape was labeled from 1972. The serial number numbers on the two computers could also not be traced. They could not be found in any record, as though they came from a classified NASA project. It's common knowledge that NASA taped over many tapes from important missions, so you would think that they would want to know what was on them. Instead, they destroyed all of the tapes without releasing any further information about them. And number 1 is the alien moon base.
5.
There would be no more manned expeditions to the moon after the early 1970s. And yet, many believe those missions continued for a while at least. The reason those subsequent missions were not made public was because NASA had discovered an alien base on the moon. Whether inhabited or not is unclear, but supporters of this theory have identified footage taken from moon orbit, as well as a controversial piece of footage showing astronauts exploring the alien structure on foot in a classified mission as definitive proof that NASA is hiding something. Others believe this footage has been released in order to muddy the waters and discredit anyone who claims that there is a structure of some sort on the lunar surface. Number 10 is a tool bag. Just because there's no gravity in space doesn't mean you can't drop something. Just ask Captain Hyde Stephanician Piper, who happened to drop something pretty expensive while out on a spacewalk outside of the International Space Station. On November 18th, 2008, a NASA astronaut was outside of the station attempting to repair a solar array when she found that a grease gun had leaked inside of her tool bag. While trying to clean out the bag, which is obviously quite difficult in zero gravity, she lost her grip on it. The bag and its contents, which weighed around 14 kilograms and was worth around $100,000, just gone. A number of amateur astronomers reported spotting the bag in orbit before it burned up in August of 2009 in the atmosphere nearly a year late. Oops, nothing like $100,000 Butterfingers. Number 9 is human waste. Yep, here it comes, the poopies! Though it might seem disgusting to consider, many astronauts have reported that watching their waste float off into space is one of the most beautiful things they've ever seen off-planet. Definitely off-planet, because on-planet poo-poo is While astronomers resort to wearing a fancy space version of an adult diaper during liftoff and re-entry, when in orbit they have a special facility that allows them to jettison their waste into the dark beyond. Of course, with the 2.7 degrees Kelvin temperature in space, urine freezes instantly into crystals that enter a similar orbit, basically becoming debris or being vaporized as it enters our planet's atmosphere. Of course, today the International Space Station has a filtration system which turns urine into drinkable water, reducing the amount of frozen urine crystals that are gonna float around Earth. Happy birthday, Timmy! Here's your telescope! Wow, thanks, Mom! What do you see? Poop? Number 8 is a spacesuit. On February 3rd, 2006, an expired Orlan spacesuit was released from the International Space Station, the source of many off things that have entered the Earth's orbit. An experiment concocted by some Russian scientists in the ISS program, led by Sergei Sambarov, the SuitSat-1 was outfitted with sensors that had a radio transmitter mounted to the helmet that transmitted telemetry data and voice recordings in multiple languages. The public was encouraged to tune into the frequency to hear messages from the floating spacesuit from some of the team members behind it and students from multiple countries. But after only 2 rotations, SuitSat, which by then was also known as Mr. Smith or Ivan Ivanovich, stopped broadcasting due to its batteries dying. Really? We're going to release $1 million suit into space and we can't put some AA batteries in that thing that'll last? Science, step it up. Number 7 is a spatula. Who wants some eggies? Oh, they're floating away. If you ever find yourself barbecuing in Earth's orbit and need a spatula, just wait a bit, and one might just make its way around you. On July 12th, 2006, astronaut Piers Sellers was working with some heat tile putty during a spacewalk when he lost a tool. Sellers and his fellow crew members on board the Discovery STS-121 shuttle were tasked with testing in-orbit repairs when Piers' spatula floated away. Apparently, he was quite quite upset about losing the utensil and claimed it was his favorite one. But sadly, it's no longer floating around up there, as scientists apparently have nothing better to do than check if a spatula is in space and have verified that it burned up upon re-entering the atmosphere. Okay, John, time to check on the astronauts' oxygen levels. Yeah, not right now, Tim, I'm watching the spatula. Number 6 is the Colbert treadmill. With no gravity, it's hard to exercise in space. So how do astronauts do it? Well, if they're on the International Space Station, they can use the Colbert treadmill. Yes, named after that Stephen Colbert, the late-night comedian, the combined operational load-bearing external resistance treadmill uses harnesses and straps to keep the runner in place so that they don't float away. Colbert had called on his audience during an online NASA contest to name one of the nodes on the ISS, asking them to write in votes to dub it Colbert. The space agency declined to do so, opting to name the exercise machine after him instead. I would say, how dare you not name a node after Stephen Colbert? He's a national treasure! But then again, I don't even know what a node is, so a treadmill sounds better, I guess. Number 5 is a Buzz Lightyear toy. To infinity and beyond is a popular catchphrase of Buzz Lightyear, a character from Disney and Pixar's animated film Toy Story. The line, of course, is a fan favorite, and never before was it more true than on May 31st, 2008, when a Buzz Lightyear toy was sent to the great beyond. The action figure was sent via crew shuttle to the International Space Station, where it spent 15 months orbiting the Earth in a joint venture to promote the new educational partnership between NASA and the Walt Disney Company. Yeah, that makes sense. A toy's probably better than a mouse. Can't breathe. During its 468-day mission, the figure was documented in photos and video with fellow crew members. Treated like a real hero once it returned back to Earth, multiple press conferences and even a ticker tape parade at the Magic Kingdom were held in its honor, and it was later donated to the Smithsonian. Number 4 are human remains. Yep, nothing like using $1 billion spaceship to send out dead corpse powder. For those we've lost that were truly out of this world, there are some incredible memorial services, including one where a person's remains can literally be out of this world. Celestis, a Houston, Texas-based company, offers a service called Space Funeral Flights, in which the cremated remains of a loved one are launched into space on board a rocket. These memorial space flights have stayed in orbit anywhere from a couple of hours to years, and some of them even landed on the moon. In fact, the remains of Gene Roddenberry, the creator of the Star Trek universe, were on board the inaugural flight in 1997. Since then, several actors, government officials, and even some NASA scientists have had their ashes sent into space. Number 3 is pizza. Okay, this one does make sense. We should be sending humanity's most delicious treat into space. It turns out that even the crew on board the International Space Station can order a pizza if they get hungry. It just takes a lot longer than 30 minutes to arrive. In the spring of 2001, Pizza Hut made $1 million deal with the Russian space program to send a pizza to cosmonaut Yuri Usachov, who was serving on the ISS. The items, which were vacuum sealed, arrived on a resupply rocket and included a crispy personal-sized crust, sauce, cheese, and salami, which replaced pepperoni due to the more traditional topping growing mold during tests. Unfortunately, American astronauts on the station were ordered not to have any of the pizza due to NASA's strict ban on advertising. Man, NASA is savage. These people went literally above and beyond for Earth's space research, and you can't even give them a bite of za? How dare you? Number 2 are Playboy pictures. On November 19, 1968, Apollo 12 successfully landed on the moon for the second time in history. NASA astronauts Charles Pete Conrad and Alan Bean made a trip to the lunar surface while Richard Gordon stayed in orbit. Prior to takeoff, the mission's backup crew, led by David Scott, set up a few pranks for the astronauts. Oh, and it wasn't a whoopee cushion, it was nasty. In charge of creating the crew's handy wrist checklist, a type of cheat sheet to remind them of tasks, the backup crew added images taken from Playboy magazine. Turns out that wouldn't be the last time they saw such images in orbit. It gets a little lonely out there, you know what I'm saying? And number 1 is the Tesla Roadster. One of the craziest and coolest things to ever orbit our wonderful planet just so happens to be the most recent thing to get there. And that cool thing is a red 2008 Tesla Roadster that's being driven by a dummy in a spacesuit. Yep. Launched on February 6, 2018, the payload in the capsule of a Falcon Heavy rocket, the most powerful rocket in operation, the car was sent up by business magnate Elon Musk. His company, SpaceX, was testing their new rocket and trying to place the vehicle in an elliptical orbit between the Earth and Mars, the red planet that the billionaire wants to colonize. The Tesla car even has a sticker on the dash which reads, "Don't panic," a reference to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and is blaring David Bowie's 1971 song Life on Mars on a loop. Number 10 is Michael Desmarquet. One night in June of 1987, 58-year-old Michael Desmarquet awoke next to his wife in their Australia home, with the sudden overwhelming urge to leave. He left a note which said that he was going far away and would be back within 10 days. He was home just over 9 days later with an incredible story. Desmarquet claims that he was pulled through the fabric of space and time itself to a large vessel orbiting Thea Ubla, a strange alien world. He met an alien named Theo who taught him the truth about Earth. He claims that humans were not the first intelligent species to inhabit our planet, and the ancient pyramids are actually communication towers. In addition, he claims that Jesus Christ was not human at all, but a Theouban trying to bring enlightenment to mankind. Desmarquet brought all of this information back with him and ended up writing a jaw-dropping book all about his experience. What's especially odd is that this man is educated and is a respected member of his community and has no reason to make up such a story. Number 9 is George Adamski. The most famous contactee of the 1950s, Polish-American George Adamski claimed that he had many experiences with an alien species called the Venusians. On October 9th, 1946, at the Palomar Gardens campground in California, Adamski, along with his friends, spotted a cigar-shaped spaceship that passed in front of the moon. That event passed, but then the ship returned on November 20th, 1952, allegedly seeking out Adamski. He claims that a Venusian pilot named Orthon met with him in a forest and communicated with him telepathically. This was apparently the first of many encounters, as he also brought the man aboard and showed him Venus, where the reincarnation of Adamski's dead wife was living. While some believe that George Adamski is a con artist and a liar, many fully believed his story and many still do to this day. Number 8 is Robert Taylor. On November 9th, 1979, 60-year-old forestry worker Robert Taylor was walking his dog in Livingston, the largest town in West Lothian, Scotland, when a dark metallic flying dome suddenly appeared, hovering above a clearing 480 meters from his truck. The object was approximately 6.4 meters in diameter and had an outer rim with a number of propellers on it. As the horrible odor of burning rubber filled the air, nauseating Taylor, 2 small orbs flew to either side of him and began forcing him towards the larger sphere. This is when Taylor claims he blacked out, waking up to find his dog still acting anxiously and the spheres gone. Unable to start his truck, he walked home and called the police. Although his story sounds insane, nobody, the police included, could explain the drag marks that the orbs had formed in the earth. Between his descriptive story and the physical evidence that remained, it's hard to believe that Robert Taylor would tell such a lie. Number 7 is Betty and Barney Hill. Around 10:30 p.m. on September 19, 1961, Betty and Barney Hill of Portsmouth, New Hampshire were driving back from Niagara Falls, Canada, when Betty spotted an odd light in the sky. Pulling over, the couple used binoculars to get a closer look and found the object was actually some kind of alien aircraft. Alarmed, the couple sped off, though both soon felt a buzzing sensation. Arriving home, they realized that a trip that that should have taken 4 hours actually took 7. Somehow, they had lost 3 hours of their lives. Betty also noticed that there was a pink powder on her dress. Both of their clothing were torn in odd places, and each of their watches had completely stopped. Betty's dreams were plagued of memories of being experimented on by unknown figures and having skin samples taken. What exactly happened to the Hills on that day is still unknown, but their story points to alien abduction. Number 6 is Hilary Porter. 70-year-old Hilary Porter from Wales claims that when she was just 5, an alien appeared before her in her family's backyard. She claims it was a scaly reptilian creature that stood 1.5 meters tall. Incredibly strong, it dragged her to its ship where she was examined and had samples taken. It was only after she returned home that she realized that this had been happening since she was 2 years old and would periodically vanish from the garden as her mother searched for her. Since then, Porter has lost count as to how many times she's actually been abducted, but always suffers migraines when she returns and often finds odd suction marks, cuts, and bruises on her body. According to Porter, aliens are among us right now and are collecting genetic material to make human-alien crossbreeds. Number 5 is Antonio Villas-Boas. On October 16, 1957, 23-year-old Antonio Villas-Boas was plowing a field just outside of São Francisco de Sales, Brazil, when a glowing red star appeared in the sky. What he believed was a star was actually a red egg-shaped vessel, which landed in his field. Boas claims he was suddenly grabbed by a small figure which forced him into the ship. There were multiple creatures on board who were humanoid in appearance, though shorter than an average person. Alarmingly, Boas was stripped naked, covered in gel, and forced to copulate with a female alien. 4 hours later, he was returned to Earth, having fulfilled his purpose of impregnating an alien woman. Though few people initially believed him, when Boas became ill and was diagnosed with a mild radiation poisoning, many changed their tune. He died in January of 1991 and never once changed his story. Number 4 is Kirsan Alumzhanov. In September of 1997, 35-year-old Kirsan Alumzhanov, president of the Republic of Kalmykia in the Russian Federation, was standing on the balcony of his Moscow apartment when he was suddenly abducted by an alien spacecraft. The creatures were kind to Kirsan, giving him a tour of a part of the galaxy. He even got to visit another planet where the aliens were picking up equipment. The humanoids could somehow communicate with him either through actually speaking or via telepathic abilities, and returned him at his request to his balcony an hour later. Now, while this story seems very far-fetched, the oddest part was that Kirsan's staff searched the entire flat for him but could not find him during the exact hour that he was away. They were alarmed and shocked when he simply walked out of his room completely unharmed and stunned by what he'd seen. The elected official has said over and over that he has no reason to make up such an elaborate story. Number 3 is Amy Rylance. On October 4th, 2001, 22-year-old Amy Rylance and her 39-year-old husband Keith were at their home in Australia, hosting their business partner, 35-year-old Petra Heller. Around 11:15 p.m., Petra woke up to the sound of smashing glass and a bright light coming from under the door to the next room. Investigating, she found Amy being carried out of a broken window on a beam of light into a ship, which quickly flew away. Both Petra and Keith called the police, who didn't believe them, but 90 minutes later, Amy called Keith from Mackay, a city 8 hours away. Amy was fine except for the evidence that her body hair had grown as if she'd been gone for several days, and there were red marks on her legs. She claims remembering tall figures taking samples from her, but little else. How she traveled such a distance and managed to to age over just 90 minutes is still unknown. Number 2 is Travis Walton. On November 5th, 1975, a logging crew was sitting in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest just outside of Snowflake, Arizona, when they saw a saucer-shaped object hovering in the sky about 33 meters away. 22-year-old Travis Walton approached it, only to be knocked through the air by a beam of light. Terrified, the other men who witnessed it drove off, but when they returned with help, Walton had vanished. Search teams brought back nothing until 5 days later when Walton reappeared suddenly. He claims that a clear mask was placed on his face and he was then on an Arizona highway as the saucer flew away. This story is widely considered to be one of the most solid pieces of evidence that alien life exists. And number 1 is Linda Napolitano. On November 30th, 1989, 41-year-old Linda Napolitano was abducted from her Manhattan apartment. The creatures who took her somehow drew her through a closed bedroom window and into their ship, where she claimed she was reassembled and opened up like a clam. While she moved, the alien stood in mid-air on beams of light created somehow by the vessel. Napolitano was then brought through the ship to a room with a long silver table and made to lay down where the aliens examined her. Adding to the legitimacy of the woman's claims, 2 United Nations security guards came forward, having witnessed Napolitano being abducted. They even kidnapped the woman, demanding to know what she knew about aliens and why they were on Earth. But unfortunately, like them, she knew very little. Number 10 is the number of planets. If we think of life as a phenomenon which requires a specific set of environmental factors to occur, then we can start to work out the probability of alien life in the universe. Temperature, material elements, chemistry, and stability, all of these things play their part. But the biggest, number 1 factor necessary for life as we know it is to have a celestial body like a planet. You know, the perfect neighborhood for life to evolve. Previously, we were not exactly sure that planets around other stars, known as exoplanets, actually existed. But with the development of the Kepler satellite, which can detect minuscule changes in a distant star's light when planets pass in front of it, astronomers have detected nearly 4,000 planets so far. So in other words, planets are probably abundant, and that means that there are plenty of places for extraterrestrial life to call home. You know, now that I think about it, an alien world would probably be perfect. Why would they want to come here with all the farting cows? It's a thing, Google it. Number 9 is the age of the universe. In case you didn't know, the universe is about 13.8 billion years old. Our planet Earth has been around for about 4.5 billion years of that, with the oldest evidence of life being 3.9 billion years old. It wasn't until about 7 million years ago that the first hominoids evolved, and then finally you get us, the Homo sapien, just a few 100,000 years ago. But even within that time, recorded history is only about 10,000 years old. Probably because we didn't develop writing until around that time. Well, you know that, or there were numerous cataclysmic events that kept resetting our civilization. Mama, no! The point is, even if it takes 4 billion years to get civilization, the universe is way older than that. And extraterrestrial species could have become technologically advanced several times over during that time. So who knows how many alien cultures could be out there? They're probably looking at us right now like they're still using toilet paper. They don't know about the shells. Number 8 is the theory of panspermia. A big challenge in science is to explore the conditions which led inanimate matter to become self-replicating, evolving through natural selection. You know, that little thing called life. Most theories involve the early Earth environment, but one theory is a little different. The theory of panspermia states that life didn't start on Earth, but instead was brought here. Now hold on, before you start to think that ancient aliens did it, panspermia actually refers to the transference of bacteria. Microscopic critters were hitchhiking on an asteroid or comet which struck the Earth, depositing life into the seas billions of years ago. Furthermore, we know that volcanic eruptions or large impacts could feasibly throw out rocky debris into space. This then spreads life further from planet to planet. So it could very well be that we are the aliens ourselves, and that countless worlds have been seeded just like ours. Oh, I just realized what panspermia means. Get it? Volcanoes just it's inappropriate. Number 7 are hydrothermal vents. We know for a fact that life arose at least once here on Earth, and we can speculate about other planets and say it's likely that alien life exists, but we don't know that for a fact. However, by studying life here on Earth, we can increase our confidence. Now, there are many planets that are nothing like Earth. In fact, most of them are quite different. Many of them are too far from their stars to have temperatures needed for most life like on Earth. In fact, some are called orphan planets and don't even orbit a star at all. But even these cold worlds may have life. You know, like ice people walking around. That's not what that means? Okay. Deep at the bottom of our oceans, there are hydrothermal vents, which spew heated gas and liquid from beneath the seabed. Around this heat source, a rich ecology of life has evolved without any sunlight at all. Astrobiologists hold out hope that even the remotest planets have such vents, and who knows what creeps around them. It's like a little club where all the alien life can get together and hang on the seabed. It's a lovely thought. Number 6 is the fertile solar system. We may not need to look very far to find extraterrestrial life if our own backyard is anything to go by. There are several candidates for environments which could actually support life around our own solar system, including Mars and the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. While so far Mars seems barren, there are telling signs that there may be life under the surface living in water. Around Jupiter and Saturn, moons such as Enceladus may have oceans of water underneath a thick crust of ice, warmed by the tidal forces of the huge gas giants they orbit. Some people have even suggested that there could be multicellular life, such as fish-like creatures down there. If life has evolved several times across our own solar system, then this would again support the hypothesis that the universe should be teeming with life. You know, if there are infinite possibilities of civilizations, then that means that there are infinite possibilities of what they could look like. Maybe they have hands growing out their foreheads and something like that. It's gonna be a nightmare. Number 5 is the resilience of life. The universe is a hazardous place filled with radiation and extremes of temperature which would wipe out a person in a blink of an eye. But when you look at the simple tardigrade, also known as a water bear, you realize just how resilient life can actually be, even when faced with the might of the universe. These microscopic animals can survive in mud volcanoes and at the bottom of the ocean, and can even withstand anything between -272 and 150 degrees Celsius. It can even survive without food for 30 years, tolerate 1,000 times more radiation than any other animal, and even survive in space. 30 years without food? I go 30 minutes without food and I get hangry. And there are other life forms called extremophiles which can thrive in even harsher environments. If life can be this resilient, then maybe there are all kinds of weird, almost indestructible creatures living out there in the vastness of space. And humans are definitely not one of them, because I just stub my toe and I cry like a baby. Fragile. Number 4 are the building blocks of life. Knowing the building blocks of life can help us identify where it might arise. For example, scientists theorize that the molecule hydroxylamine is a building block of life. It's comprised of nitrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen, elements which are common here on Earth. And astronomers have detected it in abundance around a star just 1,000 light years from our solar system. So it's very possible that where we find the building blocks of life, hopefully we can find life itself. But there are also scientific models based on hypothetical biochemistry that state that life on other planets may use different building blocks. We're carbon-based life forms because there's a lot of carbon on Earth. But perhaps on another planet, something like silicon is the most abundant element, and therefore life could evolve from that. If that is the case, extraterrestrial life could exist in many more locations than we even imagine. Number 3 is natural selection. Evolution may mandate that there is extraterrestrial life out there. And not only that, but that there must be life which has technology and uses it to travel through space. Natural selection is the cornerstone principle of evolution. It's the idea of survival of the fittest. The idea that organisms adapt to their environments and eventually thrive because only the genetic mutations which make survival possible are actually passed on. We see it throughout Earth. Millions of organisms adapted to their surrounding environments. So if we assume that some form of natural selection leads to simple life elsewhere, then that same process will, over billions of years, lead to creatures like ourselves who can change our environments. I would love to find out that there are aliens that survived on a volcanic planet. Fire aliens. Sounds badass. Number 2 is technology is king. Okay, we are now heading into some out there ideas, but be brave and come with me on this journey. I won't ask for much, maybe your sanity, but that's about it. We are constantly innovating and creating new technologies, and those technologies then lead to other breakthroughs. There is a philosophical concept that we are merely the reproductive organs of technology, creating more of it until that technology can replicate itself and head out on its own. Yep, hand over your sanity, please. Arthur C. Clarke explored this idea that space is so vast that we wouldn't actually ever meet aliens, but instead would encounter their technology. If there are aliens out there, they may be pieces of technology which replicate and explore the universe. In this way, one alien civilization could give birth to millions of others. And I'm fine with this as long as they aren't the Terminator or the Borg. That would suck for us. And number 1 is the strong anthropic principle. The strong anthropic principle states that the reason we exist in this universe is because our universe makes life likely. It's organized in such a way that all the laws of physics make sentient, intelligent, technology-building creatures probable at some point. The mathematician James England has even developed a mathematical theory which states that life has to happen, that it's as miraculous as a rock rolling down a hill. It will happen because our universe has all the right parameters to make it so. If this is the case, then it's very likely that we are not alone in the universe. And now you know, you may take your tinfoil hats off, class. Number 10 is Area 51. Area 51 has been the subject of more conspiracy theories than any one single person could count, with some speculating that the military building houses alien spacecrafts and their dead bodies, while others believe it contains weapons needed to fend off alien invaders. Area 51 is a US airbase outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, essentially in the middle of nowhere, but in a place where multiple UFOs have been seen, which has further fueled the theories. It's also been speculated that many of the inventions that we rely on today, such as computers, planes, and even cell phones, would not exist without the advanced technology on hand inside the compound. That's right, the computer or device that you're watching this video on may have been the result of reverse engineering alien technology. Number 9 are the Illuminati are preparing Earth for invasion. A theory made popular in 1988 by author Milton William Cooper and ex-Navy intelligence specialists suggests that the famous secret international society, which he claims is controlled by the Bilderberg Group, has been in regular contact with extraterrestrials. Together, they have been preparing to establish the New World Order and, in the process, reveal the existence of a more powerful race. Cooper claimed that the event will establish a new global government, enforced by the Joint Alien Illuminati organization, though it's unclear if this sudden invasion will result in a better world for those who are not enlightened enough. Number 8 is Roswell, New Mexico. On the morning of July 8, 1947, citizens of Roswell, New Mexico awoke to find their daily newspaper had an alarming front-page story. A UFO had crashed in a nearby field. The Roswell Army Airfield initially reported a flying disc had crashed, but after several government officials arrived at the scene, the official story seemed to suddenly change to the artifact being a weather balloon. Since that time, theorists have speculated that it was indeed an alien spacecraft which touched down. The reason for the conspiracy and cover-up? To reduce panic. For proof, they point at the government's story changing numerous times, as well as eyewitness claims that what crashed there was bigger than a weather balloon, and finally, the story of a nurse who allegedly walked in on an autopsy being performed on a humanoid creature. But despite all of this, we may never know the truth. Number 7 is Bigfoot is an alien. Also known as Sasquatch, Bigfoot is a mythical creature in American folklore that dates back to the late 1800s and has never been explained, unless you believe this theory, which suggests that the tall, hairy ape-like creature is actually not of this world. This theory suggests that the reason Bigfoot hasn't been caught in anything beyond some large footprints and a blurry picture is because he's simply one of the many extraterrestrial beings who visit the Earth and then leave. According to this conspiracy, several of the world's elite are actually aware of this, but to spare the masses any panic after finding out hairy aliens keep visiting, they agreed to leave Bigfoot's existence a myth. This allowing millions of believers to hunt for proof of the missing link between man and ape. Number 6 are aliens live at the center of the Earth. With everyone's eyes being fixed on the great beyond, aliens might just be having a laugh as they remain hidden right under our feet. This conspiracy theory suggests that the third rock from the sun is hollow, and its innards are home to humanoid aliens who are superior to us in both physical and mental aspects. Of course, the world's leaders are aware of those we share the planet with, and have several agreements with them, including keeping them secret. The theory goes on to say that the many UFOs that have been spotted were actually sent from inside the Earth, and are used by the aliens to keep an eye on humanity and interfere with any global disaster events, such as nuclear war. In a strange, twisted way, it is in fact possible that we have the Hollow Earth aliens to thank for still being here. Number 5, our aliens have confined us to Earth. This conspiracy theory suggests that the moon landing, which occurred on July 20th, 1969, was in fact faked, and while Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin appeared on the televised broadcast, they were actually just actors on a soundstage. But while many theorists think that the reason for the deception was so that the United States would be declared the winner of the space race, others have a different reason. We didn't go to the moon because aliens will not let us. According to this, Earth is one colossal prison. Why exactly we are being made to stick here is unclear, but some believe when outsiders saw our wars and other large mistakes, they decided to restrict us. Our alien captors have allegedly interfered with the speed of which our space travel technology advances, and thus giving us false readings as to just how radioactive space is. Number 4 is alien races are too advanced to find. What if there's life out there, but they're simply too advanced to be found by the average observer? One theory, dubbed the transcension hypothesis, suggests that natural evolution may bring civilizations more inward than outward. Essentially, life out there has gone more Matrix than Star Trek, and has evolved into advanced virtual reality-like life instead of developing massive ships and exploring the universe. If this is true, then alien life could be discovered, or perhaps it already has. Advances in artificial intelligence and VR might just be the result of secret communication projects with creatures on another plane of existence. And as mankind extends our reach through the digital world, we may find our evolutionary future has a similar destiny. Aliens may in fact be very close by, just in another world, so to speak. Number 3, our aliens have replaced key figures. In a disturbing move, shape-shifting creatures from another world have secretly made their way to Earth and essentially invaded as quietly as possible. That is, of course, if this conspiracy theory is true. A number of variations of this belief exist, but the common core of it is that many of those who led the world have been replaced by extraterrestrials. Presidents, prime ministers, military commanders, and even royalty are usually the ones believers point to, though captains of industry such as billionaire tycoons and well-respected scientists are also on that list. But while replacing high-ranking and powerful individuals would be an asset during invasion preparations, it's very often celebrities like Beyonce, James Franco, and even Paul McCartney that are called out for being off-worlders in fake skins. It may in fact be that your favorite entertainer or celebrity is in fact not of this world. Number 2 is Jesus was an alien. If aliens have indeed walked among humans, they are likely quite adept at blending into crowds and going undetected. But according to one theory, some of them weren't very quiet while being in human form, the biggest rebel being Jesus Christ himself. Think about it. If the Bible's tale of the Savior's crucifixion and then resurrection is in fact historically accurate, then a man somehow possessed supernatural powers, including a healing touch, transmutation gifts, and an ability to walk on water. That's not to say Jesus wasn't the Son of God, but this belief also claims that God may also be another alien, or even the planet or ship that the creatures come from. But Christ wasn't alone either. Buddha, Sri Krishna, and Confucius were all members of the same powerful alien race. Could it be that these powerful beings were in fact aliens? Only you can decide. And number 1 are we are aliens. One conspiracy theory that may shock you happens to be one that has potentially the most proof to back it up, and that belief is that human beings are not actually native to this planet. That's right, each of us might be the distant relatives of extraterrestrials who wanted to colonize Earth millions of years ago and now simply visit to check on how their experiment is going. This theory continues that many of the global higher-ups have known this for quite a while and give those aliens, or rather our ancestors, regular reports on the state of the planet. There's also a variation of the belief that says that some of the aliens walk among us still today. For proof, experts point to the fact that humans haven't evolved a good enough protection for sunlight exposure, and that our bodies are better suited for a planet with less gravity. Could it be that you and I are aliens? Perhaps we'll never know. Number 10 are Apollo aliens. The Apollo space program ran from 1960 until December 19, 1972, when the final mission, Apollo 17, ended. After that, manned missions to the moon ceased. The official reasons for this was that America had essentially won the space race against the Soviet Union, and that it was inordinately expensive, and that the American public would no longer be interested in going to the moon. However, some believe that the reason Apollo 17 was the final time time that man stepped foot on the moon was because we encountered something else out there. Something that warned us to never go back. Various theories have been given as to why this happened, but the creepiest are that it could have been aliens or even cosmic intelligence which warned us to leave them alone. Number 9 are ancient Mars civilizations. Most of the theories surrounding Mars suggest that there was once an intelligent civilization on the planet, and for some reason it was wiped out. Richard Hoagland is the most famous proponent of this theory, and believes that there are telltale signs on the Martian surface suggesting that an alien species once lived there. These include photographs from both Mars landers and orbiting satellites. Hoagland and others claim that tantalizing images of Martian pyramids, monoliths, and even statues have been found. They even suggest that the existence of a Martian civilization is being kept from the public for an unknown reason. Did an ancient civilization once exist? And if they did disappear, what could that mean for life on Earth? Number 8 is Stanley Kubrick and the moon landings. One of the strangest space conspiracy theories is that film director Stanley Kubrick faked the moon landings. Allegedly, Kubrick impressed NASA with his 1968 film 2001: A Space Odyssey. NASA then asked Kubrick to stage similar realistic-looking space photography to persuade the American public that the Apollo astronauts had indeed reached the moon. While this may seem outlandish, there are some strange images that are included in Kubrick's 1980 film The Shining, which some believe was a confession of sorts. The character Danny, for example, wears a sweater displaying the Apollo rocket, and the infamous room 237 is said to represent the moon's distance from Earth, 237,000 miles. Could these conspiracy theories be true? Did we in fact land on the moon, or were we lied to for some unknown reason? Number 7 is the Hollow Earth alien theory. The theory that the Earth is hollow has been around for thousands of years. But while the ancient peoples of the world populated this theoretical subterranean world with supernatural entities and even hell itself, a recent theory proposes that an advanced civilization lives inside that hollow cavity. It was in 1818 that the American Army officer John Cleves Sims Jr. proposed that the Earth was hollow, and that at the North Pole there is a large opening allowing investigation of this unexplored frontier. Since then, believers argued that there is evidence for UFOs moving into this opening. These allegedly advanced spacecraft are seen by many as proof that there is an advanced alien species living directly beneath our feet. Number 6 are dead cosmonauts. The dead cosmonauts refers to a conspiracy theory about who was the first person in space. The history books record this as Yuri Gagarin in 1961, but some allege that other cosmonauts were sent by the Soviet Union into space before Gagarin. This was allegedly covered up because those cosmonauts died before they could make it home. In fact, there is some evidence to suggest that this conspiracy theory may be true. Documents were leaked in December of 1959 by an alleged high-ranking Czech communist claiming 4 cosmonauts had already died in an attempt to reach space. Other sources do exist, but the most chilling account comes from the Giudicia Cordelia brothers, 2 Italian amateur radio operators who claim to have recorded secret radio transmissions from an unknown cosmonaut in space as he slowly suffocated. Number 5 is the secret moon base. Some conspiracy theorists believe that there is a secret moon base on the dark side of the moon. The moon is tidally locked, which means that we only ever see one side of it from the Earth's surface. So, the theory goes that if you visited the other side of the moon, you'd find a huge secret base somewhere hidden out of view. The owners of that base change depending on which conspiracy theorist you talk to. Some say that it's an alien base, some believe that the Russians live there, or the most bizarre of all, possible that it's a Nazi hideout. As bizarre as that last one may seem, some believe it because Nazis developed advanced rocket technology in their V-1 and V-2 flying bomb programs, and that they flew off in a giant rocket, escaped Berlin in 1945, and built a base on the far side of the moon. Number 4 is Satellite USA 193. The Satellite USA 193 conspiracy theory has a lot to back it up. USA 193 was launched into orbit in 2006 from Vandenberg Air Force Base. The satellite was owned by the National Reconnaissance Office, and its purpose was listed as classified. Rumors persisted that it was a spy satellite, which in itself isn't that unusual. However, what is strange is that the Air Force used a modified SM-3 missile to obliterate the satellite while in orbit. The official story is that the satellite malfunctioned and had to be destroyed due to hazardous materials on board. However, conspiracy theorists believe that the satellite was destroyed to either stop sensitive information from literally falling into the wrong hands, while others believe that the events were staged to allow the United States to carry out tests on a secret program designed to shoot down nuclear missiles while in orbit. Number 3 is Majestic 12. Majestic 12, or MJ-12 for short, is allegedly the codename for a group of scientists and military experts whose job it was to recover and research recovered alien spacecraft. This group of experts were supposedly assigned this task by President Harry S. Truman himself in 1947, following the rumored Roswell flying saucer crash. Many conspiracy theorists cite the Majestic 12 as evidence that the United States government not only knows about aliens, but has proof that they exist. The first mention of MJ-12 was in a series of alleged government documents discovered in 1984. While skeptics and the FBI claim that they're fake, ufology experts such as Stanton Friedman, a retired nuclear scientist, believe that they may be real. And perhaps most disturbing of all, if they are real, who knows what sort of alien technology the government has recovered. Number 2 is a solar-powered UFO. In March of 2012, a conspiracy theory started that NASA and other space agencies were hiding UFO evidence from the public. This started when a series of images recorded by the Solar Dynamics Observatory showed a strange object next to the sun. In the images, the object appears to be draining material from the sun and then moves off quickly. While some allege that this is an alien spacecraft siphoning off solar material for fuel, NASA scientists claim that the images are the result of a common phenomenon called a solar prominence. The sun sheds some of its material and then moves towards a cold spot known as a filament channel. It's thought that this is due to fluctuations in the magnetic field on the sun's surface. However, conspiracy theorists have a much simpler explanation: aliens. And number 1 is SpaceX isn't real. Elon Musk's SpaceX firm has reinvigorated the space industry, but it's also reinvigorated conspiracy theorists. SpaceX reached new heights by testing its Falcon Heavy rocket in 2018, and sent Elon Musk's old red Tesla Roadster towards the asteroid belt. However, some conspiracy theorists believe that the entire flight was faked and amounted to nothing more than a car advertisement. During the Falcon Heavy flight, a live video feed was sent from Musk's car as it hurled away from the Earth. Some believe that the lack of stars and the way that the light resembles an unnatural light source shows that the footage is fake. Some even believe that it could be CGI. Number 10 is Galaxy X. Once thought of as purely theoretical, there is now good evidence suggesting that our galaxy, the Milky Way, has a ghostly companion. Often referred to as Galaxy X, it's believed that this galaxy orbits around our own. The reason that we cannot easily detect such a massive object in space is that it's probably made out of dark matter, an elusive substance which is theorized to make up about 25% of the universe. Astronomers believe that they may have found the location of Galaxy X 290,000 light years from our galaxy. It's believed that unusual tidal effects within the Milky Way can be explained by the gravitational effects of Galaxy X. But there's controversy over what exactly is Galaxy X made out of, what's within it, and will we ever truly understand it? Number 9 is the Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall. The Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall is bigger than you can possibly imagine, and one of the most mysterious regions in space. Thought to be the largest structure in the universe known by man, this superstructure consists of a sheet-like pattern of galaxies about 10 billion light-years long and 7.2 billion light-years wide. This is equal to 10.7% of the diameter of the entire observable universe. Discovered in 2013, astronomers and physicists are still wrapping their heads around the implications of this structure. It seems to violate Einstein's cosmological principle, which states that the largest structures in the universe should be around 1.2 billion light years in size. The Hercules Corona Borealis Great Wall is 8 times that, and no one is even certain how it's possible that it exists. Number 8 is the CMB Cold Spot. There is a massive region of space which is colder than it should be, and that discovery has created an enduring mystery. Known as the CMB Cold Spot, this region violates what physicists would expect to see throughout the universe. After the Big Bang, which created the universe, a residue from the unimaginable explosion called the cosmic background radiation was left throughout the cosmos. This can be thought of as an echo of the Big Bang. It should be homogeneous, in other words, the same across the universe, but the CMB Cold Spot contradicts this and is significantly colder than surrounding areas. Possible explanations for this include it being a hypothesized sparse region of space known as a supervoid. Another could be that it's a bruise in our universe when it collided with another universe at some point in the past. Number 7 are Fermi bubbles. There are 2 huge bubbles of gamma rays billowing out of our galaxy, and so far there's no consensus as to what they are or how they formed. If you imagine the Milky Way as a huge revolving disk of stars known as the galactic plane, one Fermi bubble extends from the center of the galaxy above the galactic plane and the others below it. And they are massive. It's estimated that they measure 23,000 light years in diameter each and contain enough gas to create 2 million stars similar to our sun. Some believe that a huge explosive event occurred at the center of our galaxy up to 9 million years ago. What that event was is up for debate, but some believe that the bubbles were produced by a massive black hole at the center of our galaxy. Number 6 is Lyman alpha blobs. Lyman alpha blobs are gigantic gaseous structures produced by an unknown mechanism. Some of these blobs are hundreds of thousands of light years across and rank among the largest objects in the known universe. The first blob ever discovered was Lab 1 in the year 2000 and has been studied extensively since. One recent development suggests that these blobs are a trick of the light here on Earth. They may appear to be fuzzy and indistinct, but it's possible that they contain several galaxies orbiting each other, producing stars at an unusually high rate. It's thought by some that the Lyman alpha blobs may be the mechanism through which galaxies themselves are formed. We will never know for sure until we have the technology available to study them. Number 5 are green bean galaxies. Green bean galaxies are extraordinarily rare and mysterious. What makes these galaxies so mysterious is the way that they glow. In a normal galaxy, a supermassive black hole tends to sit at its center, causing dust around it to glow. This region covers about 10% of the galaxy, but in green bean galaxies, the entire galaxy glows. One theory is that this is caused by a quasar ionization echo. This simply means that there was a huge short-lived event at the center of the galaxy, which produced the glow for a limited time, perhaps 20,000 to 200,000 years in duration, and the glow we see at this moment is an echo of this. And some argue that these phases may happen again, despite not truly knowing when or how they happen. Number 4 is Tabby's star. Tabby's star is the name given to one of the most perplexing mysteries in recent astronomy. This star is like no other. The amount of light produced by Tabby's star varies on as much as 22%. Actual variable stars do exist, but Tabby's star doesn't fit that profile. It's what's known as an F-type main sequence star and shouldn't behave anything like this. Instead, it appears as though something is orbiting the star and partially obscuring it. Now, this does happen when planets pass between us and a star, but the amount of dimming is what sets Tabby's star apart. So far, no agreed explanation has ever been found, but suggestions include that an orbiting planet recently disintegrating and leaving debris around the star is the reason. It could also be uncommonly high volume of comets or asteroids in the system, or even more mysteriously, an alien structure known as a Dyson ring. Number 3 is Segway 1. Segway 1 is an unusual object which orbits our galaxy. With a mass 600,000 times that of our entire solar system, it produces a combined light output equal to 300 suns. This sounds like a lot, but it's actually extremely dim compared to its galactic neighborhood. Consisting of mainly ancient stars from around 12 billion years ago, the Segway 1 contains around 1,000 star systems. Astronomers aren't sure if it's a true galaxy or even a globular cluster of stars because it doesn't fit the profile. But the biggest mystery of the Segway 1 is that it has an unusually high mass to light ratio, which may suggest that this object is dominated by dark matter. Then there are others that suggest that the Segway 1 is a precursor to a galaxy which never completed the final steps of its evolution for some reason. The only thing that is certain about the Segway 1 is that nothing is certain. Number 2 is CDFS XT1. In 2017, astronomers using NASA's Chandra X-ray Observatory discovered a unique X-ray source called CDFS XT1. This event was a highly energetic explosion resulting from an unknown destructive event. But unlike other high-energy bursts, this one had some unique properties, including becoming 1,000 times brighter in just a few hours before disappearing. Though the source isn't certain, data from the Hubble Space Telescope suggests that it came from a galaxy 10.7 billion light years from Earth. In just a few minutes, it produced 1,000 times more energy than all the stars in its home galaxy. Explanations include a gamma ray burst pointing away from the Earth, or a black hole destroying a white dwarf star. Then there's a third possibility that it came from something that we've never encountered before. And number 1 is the zone of avoidance. Known as the Zone of Avoidance, this area of the night sky hides a number of perplexing mysteries. Due to interstellar dust and star systems blocking our view along the galactic plane, astronomers have found it difficult to study what may lie beyond this region. This accounts for as much as 10% of the night sky. Inside this zone sits the Great Attractor. This is an unknown object or structure which is pulling galaxies, including our own, towards it. Some recent studies suggest that it may be a supercluster of undiscovered galaxies hidden behind the galactic plane, but until we figure out a way to observe the zone of avoidance correctly, mystery is still going to surround the area and the Great Attractor. Who knows what amazing, mysterious, or potentially even terrifying things wait to be discovered. Number 10 is the center. Even those with a passing knowledge of the universe know that it started with a massive explosion called the Big Bang. This explosion created everything in the universe, all the matter and energy we see around us. The explosion continued to expand, and this is where we live, within that expansion. It seems logical then to ask, where is the center of the universe? So where did the Big Bang start? Well, there are two answers to this. One is that we don't know where the Big Bang originated, and the other is even more confusing, that there is no center. Astronomers and physicists liken the universe to an expanding balloon, and so we are on the surface of that balloon as it expands. We can travel across the surface, but there is no real central point that we can travel to. We cannot get inside the balloon, and therefore, we can never know where it came from. Number 9 is Hoag's object. In 2001, the Hubble Space Telescope took one of the most incredible images ever seen in astronomy. It was of an object in space called Hoag's object. This area of space has a bright object at its center, and then a large ring of stars around it. Between the ring and the center, there's a huge void, thousands of light years across. No one knows how this place formed, nor whether it should be even classified as a galaxy, as some argue. Since this initial discovery, other places have been discovered with their own Hoag objects. This shows that whatever force has created this strange pattern exists in more than one place. It's easy then to speculate that something has pushed the stars out into this ring formation, and that whatever has done so may not be visible to the naked eye, or even to our most advanced scientific instruments. Number 8 is the Unicorn Constellation. When huge gas nebulae are seen from Earth, they cause wonder in the observer. They are only made observable because the gases are lit up by a backdrop of stars. When this happens, these vast regions of space take on strange and unusual forms. However, there is one region in the constellation of the Unicorn where a nebula has taken on a shape which for many defies explanation. Known as the Red Rectangle Nebula, illuminated by two stars at its center, the nebula shines with a bizarre square shape. This is not seen usually outside of man-made constructions. One theory is that the stars are creating two separate shapes which combine to make a square. The nebula also glows red for some reason, and there are still some researchers who believe that the red rectangle remains inexplicable to this day and may forever. Number 7 is the Great Attractor. The Great Attractor is an unexplained gravitational anomaly. It sits in what's called the zone of avoidance. This is an area of space which is obscured by the middle of our galaxy, and so we cannot directly observe it. The Great Attractor is pulling galaxies towards it. To put this into context, it's believed that the Great Attractor has a combined mass which is many times larger than our entire Milky Way galaxy. What's in this region of space remains completely unknown. Some believe that there's a supercluster of galaxies in this region of space, which would account for its gravitational pull. Others still believe that there's something else about this region which needs to be explained. The debate over what the Great Attractor is and why it's pulling us towards it remains unsolved. Number 6 is the Cold Spot. One unsettling aspect of our universe is that mysterious regions continue to be discovered each and every year. These places challenge our ideas about how reality works. In 2017, for example, a mysterious cold spot in space was theorized to explain the true bizarre nature of our universe. The current standard model of physics suggests that this region, which is colder than surrounding areas, should be the result of structures in the universe known as voids. However, measurements of the radiation in this region seem to defy this explanation. More than that, physicists believe that something truly unique has occurred at this point in the universe. One theory to explain this cold spot is if other parallel universes exist outside of our own. There's no way to know for sure, but the cold spot could be where two universes actually crashed into each other. Number 5 are the filaments. The center of our galaxy has always been mysterious. It's obscured by large amounts of gas and dust, and so observing it directly can be difficult. There is good evidence to believe that there are many stars there, and even at least one supermassive black hole, but in 2017, astronomers found something entirely new. Referring to them as filaments, there are structures which seem to be swirling like a snake out from the center of the galaxy. They are comprised of gas, and one appears to be connected partially to a black hole. There's no full explanation yet for what this is and how it formed. And so, this just adds more mystery to what the center of our galaxy is hiding from us. Who knows what else we'll find as our technology to observe the unseen heart of our galaxy improves. Number 4 is other dimensions of space. It has to be said that one of the strangest theories to come out of physics is the proposed existence of other dimensions. What's even more shocking is that this theory could be correct. It could be that what we see around us as the immensity of space is only the tip of the iceberg. We live in 3 dimensions, and a 4th if you include moving through time. But there may be regions of space here with us now, inside and out of us. These regions are other dimensions, alien to our own. What's in those dimensions is anybody's guess. It could be that there are other structures like planets and galaxies, but which operate in very different ways. Furthermore, there could be a form of life in these regions of space. In this way, aliens could be closer to us than we think. They could in fact be in dimensions of space right next to us, which we simply cannot yet observe. Number 3 is the Great Nothing. The Great Nothing is one region of space which continues to confuse astronomers. It's an enormous spherical region with a diameter of nearly 330 million light years. What's strange about this region is that it's almost completely empty when compared to the rest of the universe. To put this into perspective, if the Earth was at the center of the Great Nothing and you looked up at the night sky, you would see no stars with the naked eye because everything would be too far away. Current theories suggest that for this region of space, there should be over 2,000 galaxies, and yet only 60 galaxies have been found in the entire area. One speculative theory is that the entire region is populated by an alien race which has built structures called Dyson spheres around the stars, absorbing their energy and blocking their light in the process. Number 2 is the space between. We tend to think about the universe as countless stars surrounded by planets, and that each star has its own family of objects on top of that, including asteroids, dwarf planets, and moons. You might call it a stellar neighborhood. However, what we fail to comprehend is that most of space is what is between these neighborhoods. Recently, scientists have discovered that these empty spaces may be more mysterious than we once thought. The reason? They're not exactly empty. There may be countless dark objects moving through these regions, waiting to collide into our own solar system. These could be rogue planets, but more worrying, they could be the remnants of a dead star or a black hole. We cannot know for sure what lies in the space between our solar system and another, but it could contain things which will truly defy the limits of our imagination. And number 1 is beyond. An important question is, if our universe is expanding, what is it expanding into? This is a common question, and physicists and philosophers have been trying to answer it in a satisfactory way for decades. However, the perfect explanation remains elusive. There are candidate theories though. For example, what we consider as our universe may just be what we can see. It may in fact be far larger than that, and so the expanding galaxies of which we are a part are simply expanding into this part of space. However, if this is true, there is a terrifying potential consequence. Some theorize that out there other big bangs have occurred and are hurtling towards us. We simply just can't see them yet because the light hasn't reached us. When we do finally see them, our universe as we know it could be destroyed by galaxies and black holes from other big bangs, ripping through our own. Number 10 are black holes. Though scientists have been studying black holes for a long time, there are still more questions than answers when it comes to what we know about these intense and sometimes scary space anomalies. A black hole is an invisible space with so much pull that even light can't escape being drawn in. The only reason that we know that they're there is because of the reaction that they have to other things in space. Because we can't see them, it's difficult to determine what exactly they are, or for that matter, what happens to everything that gets sucked into them. One of the most popular current standing theories is that everything inside a black hole gets compressed with mind-boggling force. In fact, it's believed that a black hole the size of an atom can actually have the mass of a mountain, just one of many unsolved questions of the universe. Number 9 are Saturn's rings. When you picture the gas giant that is Saturn, there's really no way to not visualize the mammoth colorful rings surrounding it. And while science has determined that the rings that you're picturing are made up almost entirely of ice, with trace elements of rocky material, what hasn't been determined yet is how they formed or why they're made of ice, and for that matter, how they managed to remain so incredibly flat. There are also some gaps between the rings that have no reason to be there. While some features of the rings suggest that they were formed when the planet formed an estimated 4.4 billion years ago, other properties suggest that they're actually more of a modern development. It's very possible that Saturn might just be the most mysterious planet in our solar system. Number 8 is Tabby's star. Situated nearly 1,500 light years from us is a star called Tabby's star. It's a bit larger and definitely hotter than our sun, which is admittedly not an anomaly. However, what is that for some reason, its light has been spotty, dimming as much as 22% since its discovery. The phenomenon has brought forth a number of theories. Some believe that there are a number of large comets or dust orbiting the star, while some actually think that there could be an alien race using advanced technology to siphon energy from it. Whatever the reason, the truth continues to elude humanity, which means anything could be out there. Number 7 is Jupiter's red spot. The most iconic symbol that tells you that you're looking at Jupiter, the 5th planet from our sun, is the giant red spot whirling about on it. Any person with the love of space can tell you that you're actually seeing a colossal hurricane-like storm that's the size of 3 Earths. But if you ask an astronomer why the spot is red at all, they can only speculate, as nobody actually knows. The red spot storm has been raging for at least 400 years. It's higher up than any of the clouds surrounding it and is actually cooler in temperature, not warmer. Yet still, the only variation in color is a change in hue that occurs on occasion from the recognizable bright red to a rosy pink. On top of all of this, we still don't know even why the storm is happening at all. Number 6 are cataclysmic variables. Cataclysmic variables, or CVs, are binary star systems, meaning that there are 2 suns instead of 1. Having 2 is actually not that rare, as over 50% of the systems discovered have more than 1 star. But for CVs, while one sun has become a white dwarf, which our own sun will do in about 4.5 billion years, exhausting its nuclear fuel and becoming extremely dense, its companion sits in such close proximity to it that the white dwarf literally drains all of its gas. Now, what doesn't make sense here is that if the primary star has become a white dwarf, it must have been a red giant previously, meaning the partner star, being as close as it is, must have been somehow inside of it. This is absolutely unexplainable and to this day boggles many scientists' minds. Number 5 is dark matter. According to the standard model of cosmology, the universe is made up of only 4.9% matter, 68.3% is made up of dark energy, which we'll get to in a moment. But what about the remaining almost 27%? That is where the dark matter theory comes in. As the name suggests, dark matter is dark, as in it cannot be seen. Shockingly, scientists actually know more about what it is not than what it is. It doesn't interact with or emit electromagnetic radiation, and we know that it can't be matter, as if it was, it would contain particles called baryons, which we'd be able to detect it through reflected light. Still, it exists, and it's out there affecting every galaxy's mass and rotation rate. We simply have no idea what it is. Number 4 is the Great Attractor. Our galaxy shouldn't actually be moving as fast as it is, unless of course it's being drawn to something. Scientists believe that that something is the Great Attractor, a gravitational anomaly located at the center of the Laniakea supercluster that could be thousands of times more massive than our own galaxy. Numerous tests trying to determine both if the Great Attractor exists and, if so, what it is have been conducted, and though we still have no answers either for or against its existence, a large number of new galaxies we weren't able to see before have now been discovered. The odds are extremely good it won't be something that we or our near future ancestors will have to worry about. But just think about this for a second. We have no idea what we're headed for, but whatever it is most likely not good. Number 3 is the cosmic void. One of the most bizarre things out there in space is actually a severe lack of things. The Great Void is a colossal area of space with very few galaxies. Located within the constellation Canes Venatici, this black spot in the sky is roughly between 1 billion and 1.3 billion light years in diameter. And yet, it's only the second biggest void out there. A 1.8 billion light year wide supervoid exists in a place that is, for a reason that scientists cannot determine, colder than it should be. The voids have around 20% less matter than they should, based on the galaxies that surround them. There's one theory that suggests that shortly after the Big Bang, quantum fluctuations helped redirect matter as the universe expanded, so the voids could be getting even bigger as time goes on. Whatever theory you choose for this mystery, it still remains completely unknown. Number 2 is Planet X. While it hasn't been discovered yet, many experts claim the only explanation for the odd orbital behaviors of objects spotted far beyond Neptune, the farthest planet from our sun in the solar system, is the existence of a planet that, for one reason or another, we've never seen before. Also known as Planet 9, Planet X won't have an official name until someone can prove without a shadow of a doubt that it's actually there. Researchers studying the Kuiper Belt, a ring-shaped group of dwarf planets, frozen gases, and other space debris, reported that items had a peculiar orbit, which could be explained by the existence of a planet roughly the size of Uranus, but so far from us that it would take between 10,000 and 20,000 years for it to orbit our sun. NASA's hopeful that we'll be able to prove its existence in our lifetime. And number 1 is dark energy. Though in a humorous way, it kind of sounds like a power that a supervillain would want to harness. Dark energy is actually the stuff that makes up nearly 68% of the universe. The top scientists at NASA cannot tell you exactly what dark energy even is. Theoretically speaking, it's a repulsive force that is accelerating the expansion of the universe by counteracting the gravity that would otherwise be slowing it down or even reversing it. There is a theory that there may be a type of energy fluid out there somewhere filling space, or perhaps Einstein's theory of gravity should include a cosmological constant, Or maybe it's wrong altogether. Whatever the real answer is for now, it's been given the label of dark energy until we know something for sure. We also don't know how it would affect us directly if we ever came into contact with it. Let's hope it doesn't harm us. Number 10 are the Badlands Guardian. Located just outside of Medicine Hat in Alberta, Canada, the Badlands Guardian, also known as Indian Head, is a large geomorphological feature that quite accurately depicts a human head wearing a full Aboriginal headdress. The Guardian is facing due west and, due to a man-made road and well, now appears to be wearing headphones. However, no human created the Badlands Guardian. It's apparently an incredible coincidental natural formation, likely caused by some sort of incredibly strange erosion. Of course, many believe it's not a natural occurrence at all, and that after aliens visited the Earth and came into contact with Native Americans, they carved the image into the ground with their advanced technology, either to remind themselves or let the next visitor know what's down here. Number 9 are the Nazca Lines. Littered across the Nazca Desert in Peru are a number of bizarre geoglyphs that have left many people puzzled since their discovery. The Nazca Lines consist of 800 straight lines, 300 geometric shapes, and 70 images of animals, plants, and people, with every line of them being carefully made. Some of the glyphs are over 370 meters in length, and all of them are made to be seen from higher up. The question is, who exactly are the drawings meant to be viewed by? Did the ancient Peruvians somehow know humans would one day fly through the sky? Were the images meant to please the gods? Or are they messages from ancient aliens to alert other extraterrestrials about what this planet has on it? Many people perceive these to literally be a message to other aliens to potentially be aware of what's happening on Earth. Number 8 is the Trilithon of Baalbek. Considered one of the most mysterious ruins of the Roman Empire, the Trilithon of Baalbek is a trio of colossal stones that support a temple devoted to the god Jupiter. One of the questions surrounding a number of ancient sites is how the people of the time managed to create such landmarks with their limited technology. This site in Lebanon is no exception. Each of the stones weighs over 750 tons, the largest ones to be discovered to date, and are said to have come from far away, as their composition doesn't match the immediate area. With their size, weight, and the fact that they were situated with near perfect positioning, has led many to theorize that the human builders either had help from a more high-tech race of beings or didn't build it at all. Number 7 is Puma Punku. Located in western Bolivia, Puma Punku is a temple complex that was completed sometime before 536 AD. The walls of this ancient structure contain stones that weigh as much as 131 tons, and archaeologists argue to this day over how exactly people moved and placed them. Inca legends say that Puma Punku is where the world was created, when the father god Viracocha created the first man on a stone. Is it possible that it wasn't a god as we know them, but an advanced alien race that shaped human history? The craftsmanship and detail of the stonework is incredibly intricate and has left many experts scratching their heads as they search for an explanation. Adding to the mystery, a large portion of the complex is on the bottom of a lake that has no rivers feeding it, meaning the area must have seen an unnatural flood. Number 6 is Cave of the Crystals. In February of 2017, scientists announced that new microbial life forms had been discovered in a cave in Mexico. The microbes were found inside a piece of crystal that was taken from a place that's appropriately named the Cave of Crystals. This amazing place is around 300 meters below the surface and features some of the biggest natural crystals ever found. But just how natural are they? Due to an underground magma flow underneath it, this large cavern is incredibly hot, and humans can't handle any more than 10 minutes inside of it. Yet the microbes somehow have survived for as many as 500,000 years. After their discovery, specialists at NASA revived the life forms and hope to use what they learned to find potential alien worlds. However, it may be that these microbial life forms are already alien forms here on Earth. Number 5 is Teotihuacan. One of the largest cities of the ancient world, Teotihuacan, was established around 100 BC in what is modern-day San Juan. Located 40 kilometers outside of Mexico City, Mexico, archaeologists exploring the ruins of the city discovered that people who designed it were geniuses, allegedly having advanced knowledge in regards to mathematics and astronomical sciences. If you look at all of Teotihuacan from above, the layout of the streets and buildings closely resembles a simple computer circuit board, with two of the largest structures, the Temple of the Sun and the Temple of the Moon, standing as processors. Of course, there's no way that an ancient civilization could possibly know what a circuit board is, right? Perhaps it wasn't a human who designed it at all, but something else out there. Number 4 is Stonehenge. It might seem like this monument is just some rocks stacked awkwardly on each other, but the truth is that there is no concrete proof as to how exactly ancient societies managed to construct one of the most famous landmarks on the planet. With the help of more advanced technology, moving the stones, which weighed around 25 tons each, would seem possible, but without it would require a skill level that would have been all but unheard of 2,000 to 3,000 years ago, when it's estimated that Stonehenge was built. A common belief is that intergalactic astronauts visited the Earth and taught the people of that age how to make such large creations, and in turn, the people used the knowledge to make landmarks in their honor. Perhaps Stonehenge is where humans would go to pray to the beings who once visited Earth. Number 3 is the Yonaguni Monument. In the winter of 1987, Kihachiro Aratake, a local tourism group director, was diving off the southern coast of Yonaguni Island in Japan, searching for a good place to observe hammerhead sharks. That was when he stumbled across a massive series of rock formations that has since completely baffled scientists. The main formation is the Yonaguni Monument, which appears to have been artificially made, with its square, steep risers and finely shaped images. The problem is the sandstone that the submerged relic is made of is connected to the ground beneath it, making it seem like the most unlikely natural occurrence of all time. Debates continue, but some have a more out there answer, that this complex is made by aliens over 10,000 years ago. And since humans could not possibly have built it, they might just be right. Number 2 is Easter Island. Also known as Rapa Nui, Easter Island is so named due to being discovered on Easter Sunday, April 5th, 1722 by Jacob Roggeveen, a Dutch explorer. A Chilean territory in the southwestern Pacific Ocean, the island is most famous for the monolithic statues called the Moai. these statues grace all over its landscape. These giants are truly an architectural wonder, and while many believe they were created by human beings with genius intellects as well as tireless spirit, there are others who claim that they are just too detailed and large to have been made and moved by human hands. Backing up their claim is the fact that 24 wooden tablets were found, inscribed with the Rapa Nui language, which still has yet to be deciphered. Not to mention the fact that the Moai look alien in appearance. So, are these statues humans, or are they aliens? And number 1 are the Great Pyramids. The most famous structures that are considered the work of extraterrestrials are the Great Pyramids of Giza. It's theorized that the ancient Egyptians did not have the tools nor the intelligence to construct them or to move these massive stones. In addition to all that, just to elevate the stones would have been nearly impossible. In fact, it's arguable that it would even be difficult to make these even today. But if the pyramids have been around for thousands of years and humans couldn't build them, then who did? It's a common belief that they were the work of aliens, built with advanced technology that moved the millions of stones, many of which weigh several tons. Plus, many of the pyramids line up with astrological signs, such as Orion's belt. They may hold the bodies of powerful men and women, but might be the work of something very not human. Number 10 is the Sun's twin star. It's possible that our own sun has a dark twin. Referred to as Nemesis, this star could be orbiting our own solar system. Most star systems are what is known as binary. This simply means that there are 2 stars at the center of a star system orbiting each other instead of one. Because of some strange gravitational anomalies in our outer solar system, it's been hypothesized that our own sun may also have a dark star twin, which is either a brown or red dwarf. Matt, that's offensive. They prefer to be known as little stars. These objects haven't quite reached the mass to spark fusion reactions like main sequence stars, so they remain relatively cool and give off little light. Interestingly, one theory suggests that extinction events on Earth happen at regular intervals. It's possible that the Nemesis star comes close to Earth every 26 million years or so and wipes out much of the life here. Number 9 is the holographic universe. Some physicists believe that our entire universe is a hologram. This theory states that one of the best ways to describe the universe is to think of it as a 2-dimensional image projected onto something beneath it. In this way, the universe can be thought of as a holograph displayed on a cosmological structure, kind of like a cinema screen. Though it sounds like science fiction, the holographic principle is supported by the fact that the equations used to describe the universe as a hologram can also be used to solve some theoretical issues with black holes. So when we experience the universe as 3 dimensions, it could be that we are always just part of a holographic projection, and that the true nature of reality, the projector, is buried somewhere out of sight. In this way, we never get to see what reality truly is at its base level. Number 8 is the asteroid belt's planet origin. Our solar system is home to a massive asteroid belt, which surrounds the sun between Mars and Jupiter. There are many theories as to how this huge collection of orbiting rocks came to be, but one is that many, if not all of the asteroids, are actually the remaining debris of a destroyed planet.
Yes, this theory is absolutely correct.
Now, it's true that this theory has fallen out of favor in recent years, but now physicists believe the asteroid belt is made out of rock structures known as planetesimals, which never quite reached a big enough mass to form a new planet in the first place. But there are still some who believe there was another planet orbiting between Mars and Jupiter at some point in the past. This planet was then destroyed either by a massive impact or by some gravitational process, and what we see today in the asteroid field is effectively that planet's grave. Death Star! I got a cough. Number 7 are colliding universes. A current idea in theoretical physics is that our universe is just one of many universes. While this theory is popular, there's not a lot of empirical evidence for it. I mean, after all, how do you observe something outside of the universe that you're in? But there is some tantalizing information in our own universe which suggests at some point in the past, it may have collided with one of these other universes. For me, that's exactly what the Mandela effect is. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It'll cause you some sleepless nights. In 2015, astronomers found a large cold spot in the structure of the cosmos, and some physicists have since hypothesized that it's the direct result of another universe bumping into our own. Others hypothesize that our universe itself was created when two parent universes smashed into each other, creating the Big Bang. Two parents, Big Bang, it was a dirty joke there. Anyway, from this perspective, it could be that our very existence relied upon the destruction of another civilization's reality. Number 6 is repeating Earths. One theory proposed by astrophysicists is that there are other exact copies of our planet somewhere else in the universe. This alternative to the multiverse theory of universes states that our own universe continues far past what we've observed so far, and may even be infinite. Many physicists believe that these other regions of our universe, which we can't see yet because of the distance, contains other galaxies like our own. If our universe is indeed infinite, then it's likely that every possibility plays out an infinite number of times. This means that there's an infinite number of Earths, and therefore an infinite number of Matt Santoros. Just let that sink in. There's a whole lot of baldness out there in every universe, so enjoy. Number 5 is relative time. Albert Einstein proposed his theory of general relativity in 1915, and one strange quirk of it suggests that time can move at different rates depending on your location, your speed, and your mass. It's difficult to wrap your head around the fact that time is relative and not the same for everyone, but this is perfectly illustrated by what's known as the twin paradox. Imagine two twin sisters. One of them lives on Earth while the other takes a return trip away from our planet close to the speed of light. By the time the space-traveling twin returns to Earth, she's only aged a couple of years. But for the twin who remained on our planet, time traveled much faster. In fact, she's aged more than 10 years. This is known as time dilation and has even been proven in experiments. So there you go, the cure to aging, just travel around the planet at light speed. It might rip your body and your existence apart, but you won't age. Number 4 is consciousness creates the cosmos. That's right, you think you're watching a bald man with big teeth right now give you facts, but are you? You are, because you're imagining it. A controversial theory to explain how the universe began is that consciousness came first and actually helped produce the universe we see today. Some physicists believe that at a fundamental level, reality is not well defined. In fact, all subatomic particles are in what's known as superposition. This means that each particle is in all possible locations at the same time, and that only when a conscious being observes that particle does it snap into one specific place. From this, some have suggested that reality itself does not exist as we know it without a conscious observer. In other words, you. It's possible then that as we stare through a telescope farther and farther back to the beginning of the known universe, that we're not just bringing the stars and galaxies into focus, but actually bringing them into existence itself. Number 3 is cosmic genocide. There are several potential theories as to why we haven't found evidence for alien civilizations yet, but the most frightening is that genocide on a galactic scale is taking place. Given that Earth is not really a special planet and that other similar planets revolve around similar suns and should possess all the necessary ingredients for life, the universe should be teeming with other civilizations. Some believe that the reason no other civilizations have been found so far is that they have either been wiped out or are keeping a low profile. This may be because an ancient alien race or technology is systematically wiping out any other intelligent civilization it finds. Maybe that's why we haven't been wiped out yet. They looked at Earth and was like, oh, we don't have to worry about intelligence there. It's easy then to understand why physicists such as Stephen Hawking believe that we too should keep ourselves hidden. After all, you never know who's watching. Number 2 is evolving universes. Evolution may not just describe how life evolves, but how universes themselves are born. The accepted mechanism for evolution is known as natural selection, where only surviving animals are able to pass on their genetic traits to their children. In other words, survival of the fittest. One theory suggests that in a similar way, at the center of a black hole, another universe is created from its infinite gravity. Furthermore, such a new universe may possess all of the characteristics of our own, plus some random mutations or differences along the way. The universe then may develop its own black holes, which again carry on the family traits of our own universe. In this way, reality can be seen as an interconnected family tree of universes. Who knows how many universes it took to birth our own? And number 1 is our warped universe. Our common idea of the universe is that it's spherical in shape and expanding at an ever-growing rate. However, one theory challenges that idea and states that the universe may be packed into a much smaller space than it seems. Developed by Professor Frank Steiner, this model of the universe uses precise mathematical calculations to explain why there is an unevenness in the fabric of our reality. Instead of expanding ever out from this view, space bends back in on itself. So the vast distances which we see in space are warped and folded to fit in a smaller area. If we were then to fly to the edges of space, instead of meeting a boundary, we would find ourselves flying back towards our original point of origin as the universe curves back in on itself. Number 1 is the Mariana Incident. On August 15th, 1950, Nick Mariana became the first person ever to capture film footage of a UFO. While at a baseball diamond in Great Falls, Montana, Mariana captured 2 bright lights streaking across the sky on his 16mm movie camera. What's significant about this event is that Mariana contacted the local newspaper and the local US Air Force Base about the event before he even got the film developed. That means that he couldn't possibly have known if any doctoring of the tape looked convincing, adding authenticity to the credibility of the tape. He claimed that upon return of the tape from the US Air Force Base, that several frames showing the spinning discs were missing, suggesting a cover-up. Although I'm not exactly sure why they felt the need to cover this up. I mean, the footage looks like it was shot on a toaster, not exactly HD evidence. Number 2 is the Trans-en-Provence event. This UFO sighting has been called the most carefully documented UFO sighting of all time. On January 8th, 1981, a retired farmer named Renato Nicolai was working in his garden at his home in France when a small saucer-shaped craft about 2 meters in diameter dropped out of the sky, hovered in front of him for about 30 seconds, and then disappeared back into the sky. The French government investigated and found evidence of compacting and heating of the soil where the craft appeared, along with a black mixture that wasn't oil, but instead some mysterious metallic mixture. I'm telling you, man, these French farmers know something we don't know. Or he's just crazy. Number 3 is the Rendlesham Forest Incident. In December of 1980, there were a series of strange events that occurred near Suffolk, England, the most famous of which was the Rendlesham Forest Incident. At 3 a.m., Air Force personnel were dispatched to investigate a downed aircraft. What they discovered was a triangular alien spacecraft standing on 3 legs. They left, and upon arriving in the morning, they discovered that not only was the craft gone, but there were scorch marks and depressions in the ground where the craft once was, along with trace amounts of radiation. This event is known as the most famous UFO event to have ever happened in Britain, next to the birth of Ozzy Osbourne. Dude is weird. I'm Ozzy Osbourne. Number 4 is the Chicago O'Hare case. On November 7th, 2006, there was a group of United Airlines employees that reported to federal authorities that there was a metallic saucer-shaped craft hovering over gate C-17 for approximately 2 full minutes. Several independent witnesses outside of the airport also confirmed seeing the craft, which after making an appearance shot into the sky with such a high velocity that it left a blue hole in the clouds. Strangely, the FAA declined to investigate the sighting, claiming that it was just a balloon or weather phenomena. Yeah, big metallic balloon floating around? See those all the time. No need for alarm. Number 5 is the Harbor Mill event. On the night of January 25th, 2010, there were multiple reported sightings of UFOs near Harbor Mill in Newfoundland and Labrador in Canada. The reports all say the same thing. 3 unidentified objects flew over Harbor Mill while making zero noise. Oddly, unlike other sightings that usually claim that the craft came from the sky, these all claim that the UFO emerged from the Atlantic Ocean. What's most intriguing is that an investigation by the RCMP concluded that the UFO was in fact something, but they refused to reveal exactly what. Of course, none of this may have ever even happened, considering us Canadians sometimes have impaired judgment due to usually being drunk off beer and maple syrup, so yeah, who knows. Number 6 is the Colares UFO flap. This UFO encounter is unique because unlike others on this list, this encounter resulted in a reported alien attack. During 1977, there was a series of UFO encounters on the Brazilian island of Colares, all of which resulted in the inhabitants of the island being attacked by intense beams of radiation. A total of 35 patients were officially diagnosed with radiation poisoning, including burns and small puncture wounds within the burned area. These sightings led to the Brazilian government dispatching a team to investigate under the codename Operation Saucer, but later recalled the team and classified the files. You know, just as an aside, if you're going to give a top secret alien investigation a codename, pick something inconspicuous like Operation Groceries or Operation Lightbulb. Don't call it Operation Saucer, it's kind of a giveaway. Just saying. Number 7 is the Warren Air Force Base encounter. The Warren Air Force Base in Cheyenne, Wyoming has been the site of a number of alleged UFO visitations since 1965. The most famous incident occurred in 1976 when retired officer Bruce Fenstermacher reported seeing a cigar-shaped craft about 20 meters long moving towards the missile silos. Military and police personnel frantically converged on the site, but by the time they arrived, the craft had disappeared. The strangest thing is that despite several witnesses all having the exact same story, the encounter was not included in any official report. Cover up! Excuse me, my allergies. Number 8 is the Belgian UFO wave. Between 1989 and 1990, there were a large number of UFO sightings above Belgium. The sightings hit a peak in March 30th, 1990, when 13,500 people reported seeing huge black triangles in the sky moving in silence. The Belgian Air Force was able to track several of the UFOs by radar and even scrambled F-16 fighter jets 9 times to intercept them, all unsuccessfully. Amazingly, on 3 occasions they were able to maintain a weapons lock for 3 seconds on the UFOs, but they changed course and sped away so rapidly that the lock was broken. Whatever these UFOs were, it sounds like they were messing with the pilots. They let them lock on for 3 seconds before taking off at light speed. It was probably just payback for us making them look bad in Independence Day.
And what the hell is that smell?
Number 9 is the Westfall UFO occurrence. On April 6, 1966, a UFO was allegedly witnessed by over 200 students and teachers at 2 different schools at Westfall, Melbourne, Australia. All accounts say that a silver or silvery green craft about twice the size of a car hovered around a group of pine trees behind the school and then landed. The craft was in full view of the entire crowd for 20 minutes before it rose from the trees, tilted at a 45-degree angle, and then flew into the sky. An investigation confirmed that no private planes took off in the area during that time, and the military confirmed that there was no activity in the skies. Despite hanging around for 20 minutes, there is shockingly no photographic or film evidence that exists related to the encounter. It's pretty odd though that as soon as this thing is discovered outside of a school potentially spying on young kids, that it takes off into the sky. I wonder who the pilot was. And number 10, the Battle of Los Angeles. You might recognize the title The Battle of Los Angeles from the sci-fi movie or the Rage Against the Machine album, but it was in fact a real event that occurred in February of 1942 over the city of Los Angeles. Shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor, several unidentified flying objects were seen flying over the city of LA. Believing that the objects were Japanese aircraft, the US Army shot 1,400 anti-aircraft shells into the sky, yet nothing was shot down or even hit. The encounter ended with the UFOs flying back into the sky and disappearing. It also ended with them knowing that we can't harm them, meaning that they're likely to come back one day, except this time they'll be bringing probes. Yeah, prepare for some metallic butt love, people. It's gonna happen.
There are a number of planets in our galaxy that are similar to ours.
which means that there's simply no definitive proof yet. And while most of us can only make guesses in regards to the existence of other living creatures in the cosmos, there are others who know that we share this universe, and they've seen the evidence with their own eyes. Of course, it's easy to hear a story about someone seeing a bizarre light or objects in the sky and dismiss it as either a hoax or the person's imagination running wild. Arguably, that's often the truth behind the story. But what if it wasn't just one or two people who saw it? What if it was actually many, many people? This was the case in September of 1969, when hundreds of people reported seeing a UFO in western Massachusetts. But while some only witnessed the object moving through the sky, others had a much more alarming and physical interaction with it, and the beings on board. This is the Dark Chronicles. The Berkshire UFO Incident. It was Labor Day weekend in the United States, and most of the population of Berkshire County were enjoying the warm weather while they could. Autumn weather would soon be there, and children were preparing to return to class. All seemed relatively normal. That is, until the UFO arrived. Berkshire County, which is the westernmost county in the state of Massachusetts, wasn't previously known for being a hotspot for extraterrestrial sightings. However, on that single day, it became one, as an estimated 250 people reported seeing a strange object in the sky. The incident would later be deemed by the Great Barrington Historical Society and Massachusetts historians as a significantly historic and true event. Included in the witnesses was 42-year-old Jane Green, a well-regarded and respected member of the local community, who saw what she described as an alien aircraft floating just off the ground. Green was driving her car home with a friend in the passenger seat that evening, when a bright light flashed in front of them. Stopping quickly, the pair got out to marvel at the giant object. More cars stopped alongside them, all of the people in them unable to explain what they were witnessing. Though the object made no sound at all, Green described the encounter as the most profound experience of her life. Like any typical summer evening, then 10-year-old Tom Warner was spending time with his friends, who happened to live next door to his house in Great Barrington, a small town in Berkshire County. Warner was coloring and listening to music when suddenly a voice only he could hear spoke to him, telling him, "You have to go home." Startled and believing he'd just been spoken to by God, the young boy obeyed and immediately got up and ran out the door. It only took a few moments for him to realize that something about the short path home wasn't right. Normally, the quick trip brought the sounds of crickets and other creatures to his ears, but all the sounds vanished. Terrified, Warner tried to increase his pace to get to the safety of his home quicker, but only to realize that he was running on the spot, somehow trapped inside of a beam of light from the sky. Then something encouraged him to look over his shoulder. There, floating in the evening air above, was a colossal object. He would later estimate that what he saw was 40 feet long and 20 feet tall, and though it remained almost completely motionless, Warner himself didn't. The boy was pulled into the vessel. Shortly after being brought on board, Warner realized that he wasn't the only human taken, as several other children surrounded him, each of them looking truly terrified. The entire ordeal lasted only around 7 minutes, during which Warner was reassured with a small hand on his shoulder by a being he described as appearing Yoda-like. After the short encounter, he was returned to his home, shocked by what had just transpired. However, just before being sent back, Warner recalled seeing a teenage girl on the ship who he realized was having her own frightening experience. 14-year-old Melanie Kirchdorfer was also enjoying the summer evening and was with her family, parked by Lake Mansfield in Great Barrington, and enjoying an ice cream cone when the UFO appeared. The first thing her family saw was a blinding flash of light, followed by a giant object which rose up out of the lake before them and began moving away. While young Melanie and her sister screamed in terror, attempting to shield their eyes from the alarming sight, their father, completely fascinated by the discovery, started the car and gave chase. Then Melanie's world went dark, and suddenly she wasn't in the car anymore. she was levitating, and then in a flash, she was on board a ship with other children. When he saw Melanie on the craft, Tom Warner described her as appearing absolutely terrified, though Melanie has no recollection of seeing him. What she did remember was the fear and panic that she'd felt. Thomas Reed, who was only 10 years old during the Berkshire UFO incident, has arguably one of, if not the most famous story of the encounter with the alien craft. The Reed's family car was approaching a covered bridge in the town of Sheffield, on a route that they'd often took to get home, when they spotted a large white orb-like shape hovering in the air. Said to be bigger than a football field, the object followed the Reed family's car as they sped along. As the vehicle left the bridge, it was surrounded by what they would later describe as terrifying, brightly colored lights. Suddenly, they felt the sensation of sinking deep underwater, and the next thing that they knew, young Thomas, his mother, and his grandmother, as well as his younger brother, found themselves in a massive warehouse-like structure. Separated from the rest of his family, Thomas was put on a large metal table, where he stayed for several minutes as he listened to the frantic cries of his mother and brother. Then, almost as quickly as it started, the experience was over, and the Reed family awoke back in their car, parked just off the covered bridge. Amazingly, though this particular tale may sound far-fetched, it's worth noting that later in life, Thomas Reed was given a polygraph test to assess the validity of his fantastic story, and he was found to be 99.1% truthful. Today, the plot of land where the Reed family encountered the UFO has been donated and converted into a park, standing as a memorial to the incredible event that changed the county and hundreds of lives there forever. On July 20th, 1969, only 6 weeks before the visitors arrived over in the county of Berkshire, another incredible event involving space was taking place, as American astronaut Neil Armstrong became the first human being ever to set foot on the moon. While the event was captivating over 650 million people around the globe, there are many who believe the feat also may have acquired the attention of extraterrestrials, who then became curious about us. Perhaps the encounters occurred so that the aliens could get a better understanding of humanity's intentions as we pushed further and further away from our home world of Earth and into the dark mystery that is outer space. It's safe to say that there's far more that we don't know about what's out there in the universe than the amount that we do know. The lack of knowledge makes it difficult to distinguish fact from fiction, so we may never know exactly what happened in Berkshire County that evening. However, this raises an interesting question. How many people would have to claim that they'd seen something for you to accept it as fact? Do you trust 1 or 2 accounts given? How about 10 or even 20? How about 50? Well, this particular event has been witnessed by 250 people, most of which share a similar account of what took place. So believe it or not, we either have here one of the biggest hoaxes ever put together, or something otherworldly truly did appear in the skies of Berkshire. Number 10 is King Pakal's sarcophagus. On August 28th in 683 AD, after ruling Palenque, an ancient Mayan city, for 68 years, King Pakal died. When his sarcophagus was uncovered in 1952, it brought with it several questions, including, did Pakal have contact with aliens, and was he an alien himself? Some say that the artwork on the coffin's lid shows the king in a spacecraft preparing to take off, with his foot on a pedal and a breathing apparatus in his nose. Could it be that the sarcophagus design is a goodbye message from King Pakal before he went home? Number 9 is HD 164595's Strong Message. On August 29, 2016, Russian astronomers announced that, while using a radio telescope, they had detected a strange signal emanating from HD 164595, a star that's around 94 light years from Earth. The message was actually a powerful pulse and came from a system with a sun-like star, making the possibility that life exists there higher. No additional signals have been detected, but astronomers are keeping a close eye on that region of space in the hopes that they're right and that aliens are trying to communicate with us. Number 8 are the murals of Karama. Found in the caves of Karama, India, the murals of Karama confused local archaeologists to the point where they actually had to call in NASA experts just for assistance in explaining them. Despite being over 10,000 years old, the ancient rock drawings seem to depict modern-day interpretations of aliens in popular media, complete with spaceships and spacesuits. Some respected historians believe that ancient cavemen made them after meeting aliens, while others think the images are warnings from the aliens themselves. Number 7 is the glorification of the Eucharist. Completed around the year 1600 and commissioned by the Church of San Pietro in Montalcino, Italy, the Glorification of the Eucharist is a painting by Ventura Salambini that seems to depict Jesus and the Holy Father holding something that the artist could not have had knowledge of, a satellite. Specifically, the world's very first artificial satellite, the Sputnik 1. Some point to the sphere's inclusion as a message from another race of beings, while others claim it was added by a time traveler. Either way, the question is, why? Number 6 is the Summer's Triumph Tapestry. Created in Bruges, a city in Belgium in 1538, the Summer's Triumph is a tapestry that illustrates a happy time when a leader rose to power. But among the celebrating people and colorful trees and flowers are a few things that don't belong. In the sky are what appears to be flying saucers. While some have claimed that they are clouds, others are quick to point out how they are all the same hat-like shape and not very cloud-like at all. Could it be that this is a message from an ancient civilization that had alien contact? Number 5 is the Betz Mystery Sphere. Discovered on May 26, 1974 by the Betz family, who were surveying damage caused by a brush fire on Fort George Island, Florida, the Betz Mystery Sphere is a 20.3 centimeter wide orb of unknown origin. However, surviving the fire without a scratch wasn't the only odd thing about it. The sphere made the Betz's dog uncomfortable, changed directions on its own when rolled, and vibrated on occasion as if there was a motor running inside of it. The question is the orb a probe from an alien race, or even a doomsday device ready to kill us all? Number 4 is the Stone Head of Guatemala. In the 1950s, a stone head with fine features was found deep in the jungles of Guatemala. It was photographed, but oddly, anyone who tried to find it again afterwards was unable to do so. Adding to the mystery, a Guatemalan archaeologist named Hector E. Maja certified that the monument wasn't made by anyone in the region, and instead was created by a superior civilization with knowledge beyond any known group at the time. His claim was that essentially aliens made the detailed statue, and it vanished with no one knowing why. Number 3 are fast radio bursts. Considered one of the biggest mysteries in astronomy, fast radio bursts, or FRBs, were first discovered in the year 2007, and since then, over 24 of them have been observed. A powerful form of light radiation, FRBs flash through space at incredible speeds, all of them originating outside of our galaxy, and at least one of them keeps repeating. Though many theories have been offered, there is currently no widely accepted explanation for what created these signals, or what exactly they mean. Number 2 is the face on Mars. On July 25th, 1976, a picture was taken on the landscape of Mars that shocked many people, especially those searching for messages left by alien civilizations. The photo, taken of the Cydonia region of the Red Planet by the Viking 1 orbiter, revealed the existence of a 2-kilometer-long humanoid face that seemed to stare upwards. What became known as the face on Mars appears to have been either carved into the rocky surface or built on top of it, but what it is exactly is still under debate. And number 1 are crop circles. If you've only ever heard of one way that aliens leave humanity messages, odds are good that it's the creation of crop circles. They've been appearing in fields since at least the 1600s and consist of circles and other shapes pressed down into longer crops, such as wheat and corn. Discovered in fields around the globe, these messages are usually created overnight and have kept many believers scratching their heads. Are they maps, coded messages, or perhaps even a threat of something worse to come? Number 1 is gravitational lensing. In space, gravity has some additional effects unlike on Earth, one of those being that it has the ability to bend light around objects, an effect that scientists call gravitational lensing. This picture is of a luminous red galaxy gravitationally distorting the light from a much more distant blue galaxy, causing the blue light to appear as an almost perfect ring. This is a significant discovery because it means that astronomers may now have the ability to study things like galaxies that are behind gravity sources such as black holes. What's also quite interesting is that this effect can create multiple copies of objects, as seen in this picture, where one galaxy appears as 3 and one quasar appears as 5. That must be quite confusing to astronomers at first, because really, how would you know which is the copy and which is the real? Oh, that really does sound confusing. I'd hate to be in that position. Number 2 is pareidolia. Pareidolia is the effect of perceiving an image or pattern where it doesn't actually exist, and there is a lot of it in space. There are countless examples of images taken from space of things that look a little too familiar. This photo, taken by NASA on July 25th, 1976, appears to show a face on Mars. This image, taken by the European Southern Observatory of 3 galaxies, appears to be a cosmic hummingbird. This image, taken by the Chandra Observatory, is of a pulsar and it has been dubbed the Hand of God. This is a thermal image taken by NASA of Mimas, one of Saturn's moons, showing what looks like a Pac-Man. And of course, here's a nebula that appears to be flipping you the bird. Those are just some of the hundreds of images available online, so feel free to Google them, just don't be surprised if some of them are phallic. I mean, it is the internet. Number 3 is Mira, the red giant. If you've ever been lucky enough to see a shooting star, you know how cool it looks. But of course, a shooting star is not a star at all. It's a meteorite, as a star is billions of times bigger. Well, as it so happens, there is an actual shooting star that was discovered called Mira. It's a red giant planet at the end of its life, but instead of simply burning out like most stars, it decided to go out in a blaze of glory, rocketing through the universe at a speed of 468,000 kilometers an hour. The most fascinating thing about Mira is that the 13 light-year long tail that it's leaving behind it will actually spawn more stars and planets in the future. So essentially, it's impregnating every area of the universe that it can before it dies. Which means that all those stars will grow up without a father. Planets these days, man. No morals. Number 4 are hypervelocity stars. If you thought Mira was impressive, let me introduce you to its track-running cousin on meth, the hypervelocity star. These stars are big fiery balls of gas that blast through space at a speed of up to 3.2 million kilometers an hour. When a star system is consumed by a supermassive black hole, it ejects a massive ball of burning gas up to 4 times the size of our sun at an almost incomprehensible speed. In fact, just last year, 6 hypervelocity stars were ejected from the black hole at the heart of our Milky Way. It must have eaten some space Taco Bell. We all know that feel. Number 5 is the bipolar planet. Discovered in 2007, Gliese 581c is an extremely bizarre planet. It orbits a red dwarf star with proximity far closer than that of the Earth to the Sun. This means that it's stuck in a state of something called tidal locking, which means that one side of the planet is always facing the star, while one side is always facing away from it, just like the moon's relationship with Earth. The star side would instantly melt you, while the other side would instantly freeze you. However, in between those two extremes, there's there's a small belt that scientists believe could support life. In fact, this planet was determined to be one of the leading candidates for future colonization of space. I really don't think many people would sign up to live there if it became an option though. Mostly because the sky is a constant blood red color and plants would be pitch black due to constant bombardment of radiation. It would be like living in hell. Yeah, no thanks. Number 6 is the Castor system. The Castor system represents one of the 2 bright stars from the Gemini constellation and is one of the brightest stars in the night sky. What's impressive about the Castor system is that it only appears to be a single star, but it's actually 6 individual stars that emit 52.4 times more luminosity than that of our sun. To put that into perspective, the sun is incredibly bright and is only 0.000015 light years away from Earth. The Castor system is 49.8 light years away from Earth, so good thing it wasn't any closer or else everything would look like this. Whew. Better get your shades. Number 7 is the Diamond Planet. Discovered in 2004, 55 Cancri E is a planet made almost entirely out of crystallized diamond. This planet, dubbed the Diamond Planet, was actually once part of a binary system until its partner planet began to cannibalize it. The result was enough heat and pressure to create a planet with a core made of pure diamond, representing 1/3 of the planet's entire mass. The rest of the planet is made up of crystallized diamond, graphite, and a few other silicates. Oh, and if you're wondering just how big this planet is, it's 2 times the size of Earth with 8 times its mass. Damn boy, that's a lot of bling. Alright, whatever, I give up. I'm going to watch Netflix. Number 8 is the Himiko Cloud. The Himiko Cloud is a primordial blob of gas discovered in 2009 and is the largest object ever discovered from the early universe. Believed to date back only 800 million years after the original Big Bang, it's located 12.9 billion light years away, and researchers believe it may hold the secrets to the origins of our galaxy. This cloud belongs to the epoch of reionization, a time when galaxies were just beginning to form in the universe. It was named Himiko after the ancient and mysterious Japanese queen, which is cool, but I prefer to call it the giant mystery blob discovered near the dawn of time. Way more badass. Number 9 is the Large Quasar Group. The Large Quasar Group, or LQG, was deemed the largest and most massive known structure in the observable universe upon its discovery in 2012. The LQG is approximately 4 billion light years in diameter, and again, to put that into perspective, our galaxy, the Milky Way, is only about 100,000 light years in diameter, and even that is a huge number. In fact, it's so enormous that it literally breaks the laws of modern astronomy, as the maximum size of any cosmic structure should only be 1.2 billion light years across. Scientists are completely baffled by how this structure was formed, but I'm okay with that, seeing as how a quasar is a supermassive black hole that feeds on matter, and this structure is comprised of 73 of them, so, you know, it's probably in our best interest not to poke at it too much. And number 10, rogue planets. Our solar system has 8 planets in it, 9 if you count Pluto, but that's only counting the planets that play by the rules of our solar system. There also exists things called rogue planets, which are planets that don't orbit anything and simply move through the galaxy until something stops it. Now that's as interesting as it is terrifying, because the average size of these planets is comparable to Jupiter, and there are 200 billion of them rushing around the universe just ready to smash into us. So essentially 200 billion gigantic planets are speeding randomly around us like a universal game of pinball. So that's what God does with his spare time. On September 5th, 1977, NASA's Voyager 1 space probe was launched into space with the mission to gather information about our solar system. And one of its biggest discoveries was volcanic activity on one of Jupiter's moons. It was only meant to last 5 years, but 40 years later, and this Voyager is still boldly going where no man has gone before. Scientists turned off its cameras back in 1980 to conserve energy, but turned them back on February 14th, 1990 to capture the only photo of our solar system viewed from the outside. Voyager was also equipped with a gold-plated record to introduce humans to alien life forms. It has music from Mozart and Chuck Berry, a speech by US President Jimmy Carter, brainwaves, and even a baby crying. In 2004, it left our solar system and officially entered interstellar space in August of 2012. It's still in contact with NASA today and could last another 10 to 20 years before it runs out of power. And who knows what it's gonna find during that time? Maybe it'll find bald aliens. I know I'm not alone. India's Mangalyaan space probe was launched on November 5th of 2013 as part of the Mars Orbiter mission, also known as MOM. It was India's official entry into interplanetary space exploration. The probe went into orbit around Mars on September 24th, 2014, and was the first space probe to reach Mars orbit from an Asian nation. And not only that, it was the first country to do it on its first try. MOM is studying Mars' surface and methane in the atmosphere. And rather than trying to do everything, the craft was designed to do important research in a few key areas. India's operation is the cheapest interplanetary mission ever and only costs $74 million. Now that might seem like a lot to you, but it's nothing compared to NASA's Maven Mars Orbiter, which cost a staggering $671 million. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi pointed out that it's even less than Hollywood spent making the movie Gravity, and they didn't even leave Earth. You hear that, Hollywood? Take a page from India. They know what's up. The Tropical Rainfall Measuring Mission, also known as TRMM, was a joint mission between NASA and JAXA, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, that was launched on November 27, 1997. TRMM stopped collecting data on April 8, 2015, which is pretty impressive since it was only designed to last 3 years. But going to space isn't all about finding aliens. Taking a very distant look at our planet can actually help us understand just what is going on Earth. And TRMM did just that. Over its 17 years in service, it created a global data set of tropical rainfall and lightning and set new measurement standards. It was equipped with 5 instruments, 3 of which were sensors that measured rainfall. This led to more advanced research on the evolution and structure of cyclones, lightning storms, and Earth's climate, all of which are used to forecast weather and help us better prepare for droughts and floods. Spam in a Can was the nickname given to astronauts who took part in NASA's Mercury program, which were the first manned US missions to go to space. They got the nickname because the ships were pretty much all automated and the astronauts were more or less just along for the ride. That is, until astronaut Gordon Cooper manned the program's final mission on the Mercury Atlas 9. The ship was launched into orbit on May 15, 1963, and all was going fine until the 19th orbit when the electrical system started to fail. And I would imagine you don't want anything failing, especially electrical, when you're in space. By the 21st orbit, all the automatic stabilization and control systems had just stopped working, and the ship started to fill up with carbon dioxide. In case you didn't know, that's not good for humans. Cooper had to act quickly and manually calculate his re-entry into Earth. Manually. And all that he had was a wristwatch and the stars to figure out his location. But Cooper was one heck of an astronaut because not only did he survive, but he also performed the most accurate landing of the program. Like its name suggests, the Viking mission set out to conquer the great unknown of space. Viking 1 was launched on August 20th, 1975, and almost a year later, on July 20th, 1976, it officially became the first spacecraft to successfully land on Mars, with Viking 2 joining the party on September 3rd. The Vikings orbited Mars, mapping 97% of the planet, and took over 50,000 high-resolution photos of its landscape. We've gotten used to seeing pictures of the red planet from the Mars rover, but it was Viking 1 that transmitted the first ever photos taken on the ground on Mars. Between the two, they took over 4,500 close-up photos of the surface. The probes were able to perform biological tests of the Martian soil for signs of life, and took the first ever measurements of Mars's atmosphere, which are still being analyzed today. The Viking missions were able to lay the groundwork for NASA's Journey to Mars program. The Spaceship One launched on June 4th, 2004, becoming the first private spacecraft to ever leave Earth's atmosphere and reach the edges of space. Space tourism has been in development for years, and Spaceship One was a major stepping stone to making the ultimate getaway vacation a reality. It was designed and built by the private company Scaled Composites, which is owned by Burt Rutten, an aerospace designer, and was largely financed by Microsoft co-founder and billionaire Paul Allen. It was also the first to have a non-government crew and was piloted by civilian test pilot Mike Melville along with 2 other passengers. And Melville actually became the first commercially licensed astronaut. It flew 62.5 miles above Earth's surface, reaching suborbital space for about 3 minutes before returning to Earth. Spaceship One was even reusable and was able to fly 2 more flights on September 29th and October 4th. As cool as this is, I still would never board one of these things because I'm sure they've got most of the technology down, but all it takes is one small error and you're just space junk. On March 18, 1965, Alexei Leonov became the first man to walk in space, beating the US by 3 months. Leonov was only attached to his ship, the Voskhod, with a 16-foot cable 1,553 miles above Earth. But after a couple of minutes, Leonov's suit started to expand and got so big that he couldn't fit back through the airlock. Oh, nightmare realized! He managed to deflate his suit enough to get back inside with his commander, but when they prepared for re-entry, the ship filled with dangerous levels of oxygen and the controls stopped working. Not exactly something you want to happen when returning to Earth. When they tried to do it manually, the landing capsule didn't separate properly and they were sent spinning out of control, hurtling back to Earth. But amazingly, they survived the landing, but were way off course and spent 2 nights freezing in the middle of the Siberian forest, trying not to get eaten by wolves. But miraculously, they survived and probably thankful to have solid ground to walk on. While many countries have been in competition to conquer space, the most complex and successful project to ever be undertaken in space is the International Space Station. The ISS is a joint project between United States, Russia, Europe, Japan, and Canada. The first section of the station was Russia's Zarya module that was launched in 1998. Since then, it has been built in orbit piece by piece over the last nearly 20 years. It's almost as big as a football field with 2 bathrooms and a gym. Really, 2 bathrooms for an entire space station? Somebody's gonna poop their pants. The ISS can be seen from Earth with the naked eye and is in low orbit. It has an altitude of about 248 miles and takes 90 minutes to travel around Earth at 17,500 miles per hour. It functions as a satellite, a technology lab, and an astronomical, environmental, and geological observatory. It has been manned round the clock since 2000, and in 2015 it was actually expanded to prepare for commercial space travel, which is expected to begin soon. The space age officially began on October 4th, 1957, when the Soviet Union successfully launched Sputnik 1, the world's first artificial satellite to go into Earth's orbit. It was basically a big aluminum ball with long antennas that weighed 184 pounds and was 22 inches in diameter and traveled at 18,000 miles per hour, and it was able to circle Earth in just over an hour and a half. The Russian satellite was bigger and more advanced than American technology, which was still a few months from being launched, and led to panic that the Soviets would start using the technology for military purposes. Not long after that, NASA was formed. Sputnik lasted just over 3 months in orbit, but it paved the way for the modern world we know, where nearly all of our technology, cell phones, Wi-Fi, and weather forecasts depend on satellites. In Russian space, satellite transmit you. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union weren't only on the brink of nuclear war, they were also neck to neck in the space race. On July 20th, 1969, that race was over when America put the first man on the moon. The moment American astronaut Neil Armstrong first set foot on the moon was broadcast on TV and was watched by an estimated 530 million people around the world. The moon landing was part of the Apollo program, which was set out by President John F. Kennedy, who in 1961 announced the goal of getting a man on the moon by the end of the 1960s. Now, the program had a number of setbacks and tragedies, including the deaths of 3 astronauts when the cabin of Apollo 1 caught fire during a test launch. But 6 more moon landings followed Apollo 11, with the last in 1972. The missions actually brought back lunar samples and performed experiments on the soil, solar winds, and magnetic fields. Number 10 is universal acceleration. By now, you've probably heard that the universe is expanding, but the rate of that expansion is an anomaly. It appears that the universe is speeding up. All of the galaxies in the known universe are moving away from each other at a faster and faster rate. The reason the acceleration of the universe is such a big deal is that a lot of physicists did not expect to see this. And so new theories are created to explain what's going on. Some suggest that previously undetected forces are at play, such as dark energy, while others propose that something called the back reaction conjuncture is true. This just means that the different parts of the universe are expanding at different rates, not all at the same speed. We just happen to be in a region of space that's expanding faster than the rest of the universe. But for now, the rate of this expansion remains an anomaly, and there's nothing wrong with a constantly expanding universe. Hashtag space positivity. Number 9 is the amount of matter in the universe. Current theories suggest that the Big Bang should have produced the same amount of matter and antimatter. But in truth, there was more matter than antimatter, and that is an anomaly. Matter, of course, makes up everything that we see around us, and antimatter is like a mirror reflection of that substance. When both matter and antimatter touch, they should destroy each other. So logically, if you had the exact amount of each, there should be nothing left in the universe of note. But here we are, all made up of matter. That must mean then that there was more matter in the universe than antimatter. As of yet, no one really understands why this is the case. Physicists argue that there must be an unknown law that they haven't discovered yet, which explains it. But until then, this fact is treated as an anomaly. Number 8 is the Pioneer anomaly. There's an anomaly in space that's slowing down 2 of our oldest space probes. Pioneer 10 and Pioneer 11 were launched in the early 70s to investigate the outer planets and beyond. Amazingly, after completing their missions, they continued on into the cosmos, transmitting data for another 20 years. Side note, we had this technology in the 70s, and I can't even get a battery in my phone that lasts more than half a day. While moving away from our sun, engineers and scientists noticed that both probes were slowing very slightly, but no one knew what was causing this change in speed. Then in 2012, a paper was published claiming that they may have solved the mystery. The explanation given was that thermal recoil force produced by radiation was the culprit. However, while many accept this explanation, there are still issues in explaining why the anomaly began as the probes passed Saturn, and why the anomaly seemed to change over time. Saturn aliens, I'm calling it right now. Saturn aliens. Number 7 is Neith. The mystery of Neith goes all the way back to 1672 and is an anomaly that some struggle to explain. Back in 1672, an astronomer named Giovanni Cassini observed the moon of Venus. Other astronomers soon confirmed these observations, with the last reported sighting in 1768. But the problem with these observations is that Venus doesn't have any moons. Aliens, I'm calling it again, aliens. The phantom moon was named Neith after the Egyptian goddess and is still a bizarre anomaly in the history of astronomy. Now, it's tempting to think that astronomers centuries ago didn't have the tools in order to properly observe Venus closely, but throughout that time, telescopes were available and used. Some of the observations were so detailed and provided by reputable astronomers that it's difficult to dismiss. So if Venus did have a moon, what happened to it? Death Star, I'm sorry, I had to. It's Death Star, it got destroyed. Number 6 is Perigneo's discontinuity. Perigneo's discontinuity is an anomaly found in the movement of stars. Discovered by Pavel Perigneau in the 1950s, it's a phenomenon which still baffles scientists. Usually the orbit of stars are well defined, except when it comes to cooler stars. Mathematically, we should be able to predict the movement of cooler stars as they orbit our galaxy, but we can't do that reliably. These stars seem to orbit our galaxy faster than they actually should. Perhaps the most controversial explanation for this comes from the physicist Gregory Matloff. He's currently running experiments to see if the stars are using jets of material to alter their motion. Yes, you heard me right. Matloff believes that stars might actually be choosing to move in certain ways themselves. Oh, sentient stars? That's weird. Well, I don't know if he's right, but the idea of conscious stars? Well, that's a lot better than Los Angeles. We have a lot of unconscious stars. You know, drugs and alcohol and stuff. It's a problem. Number 5 is the flyby anomaly. The flyby anomaly is a phenomenon which as of yet has no explanation. Scientists have noted that as a satellite passes a large body such as a planet, that its speed increases more than is expected. The anomaly seems to contradict aspects of Newtonian physics and has left astronomers, engineers, and physicists scratching their heads. The change in speed is minute and isn't enough to adversely affect the trajectory of a satellite, but even the smallest of changes can have the biggest of impacts in physics. In effect, some unknown source is providing each satellite with more kinetic energy than it actually should have. Now, while there's currently no consensus, some theories have been put forward, such as undetected fluctuations in gravity or the effects of solar radiation. My theory is that there's no space cops, so why not speed a little? Number 4 is the axis of evil. Space! There's another anomaly in our universe which could reverse centuries of scientific understanding. It's been labeled the axis of evil by the scientists who study it because its implications are disastrous for the Copernican view of the universe. This view states that there's nothing special about Earth. We're not at the center of the universe, so things don't revolve around us. Unlike that one friend you have that thinks the whole world revolves around them, cut that person off. But the axis of evil anomaly suggests that there's something special about our solar system. It's a measurement of the cosmic background radiation produced by the Big Bang. Now, it should be the same everywhere, but it's not. One half of the universe is colder than the other half, and even more mind-blowing, our solar system sits in the middle. This is either an unbelievable coincidence or our solar system is special for some reason. And there goes the comment section of half the people saying God is real and the others saying no, he's not. Number 3 is the Kuiper Cliff. The Kuiper Belt is a huge disk of space in the outer part of our solar system, which is associated with a mysterious anomaly. The belt itself is measured from the orbit of Neptune and extends around 50 astronomical units from the Sun. That's over 7 billion kilometers. That's a long distance, in case you didn't get that. It's very, very far away. It contains a vast number of small rocky and icy bodies, such as dwarf planets, asteroids, and comets. Now, scientific models suggest that there should be twice as many of these objects, but for some unknown reason, the Kuiper Belt seems to stop suddenly, followed by an empty void of space. Some theories suggest that we simply cannot see what's there because the objects are too small and dim, but others argue that there may be a large object, perhaps a planet or a failed star, which has sucked up the material in the past. Number 2 is the astronomical unit. The astronomical unit is one of the most relied upon measurements in all of astronomy, but something strange may be happening to it. One astronomical unit is the mean distance between the Earth and the Sun. This equates to 149,597,870.7 kilometers. Got that all out in one breath, yes, thank you. Now, you'd expect this measurement to be stable as much of the life on our planet depends upon our distance from the Sun. But the astronomical unit is changing, and it's increasing by a few centimeters each year. One theory for this is that it's because our Sun is decreasing in mass slightly each year due to producing solar radiation in flares, and so as it gets smaller, our Sun's gravitational pull weakens. The problem with this is that some physicists believe that it isn't losing enough mass to account for the Earth moving farther away. say? So the anomaly remains unsolved. We'll figure it out, maybe. Or we'll die. We'll see. And number 1 are the stars older than the universe. Using tried and tested techniques to measure the age of objects in our cosmos, astronomers have discovered a bizarre anomaly. Some stars are older than the universe itself. Okay, we're getting deep here, folks. Get ready. The current estimate for the age of the universe is around 13.8 billion years old, but the oldest known star seems to be 14.5 billion years old. Now, you might think that these ancient stars are so far away that we can't measure them correctly, but one of the most famous, nicknamed Methuselah, is just 190 light years away. Several solutions to this problem have been offered, including a flaw in how we measure star age or how we measure the universe's age. But as it stands, no one really knows if these stars are older than the universe or not. And if they are, what does that mean? Number 10 is Peter Kury. On July 23, 1992, a 28-year-old man named Peter Kury was fast asleep in his home in Sydney, Australia. Everything was quiet around him. That was until 2 bizarre figures appeared right before him. These figures were anything but human. Frozen with fear, Peter watched as the beings stared at him, and suddenly they launched into an attack. When the attack was over, Peter was left disoriented yet still alive. The 2 alien beings had left, seemingly scared off by Peter's attempts at defense. But what makes this alien encounter so interesting is that it's one of the only instances where physical evidence was left behind. Investigators on the case maintain that hair was extracted from the scene and tested. The DNA results showed that what attacked Peter Kury was barely human and perhaps from another planet. Number 9 is Sheila Young. A remote alien encounter occurred in Montana in 1989. Sheila Young was in her late 20s at the time. One night, she and her husband and 3 children were terrorized. It began when they saw a white streak across the sky outside of their home. When they investigated the next day, they could see that the treetops had been burned off. But there was no evidence of a crashed object. The next morning at around 3 a.m., the family were awoken by bright lights which surrounded the house and pulsated. Despite their best efforts, strange human-like beings came into their home and performed a series of gruesome experiments on the family. Sheila claims that this happened more than once across a 6-month period, and that her now grown-up children suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder because of the terrifying encounters. Number 8 is Alan Godfrey. In Alan Godfrey's book, Who and What Were They?, the former British police officer describes an alien encounter in the winter of 1980. Rather than remaining silent out of embarrassment for such an unusual claim, Alan went to the press and told of how he was out searching for missing cattle on some farmland when he saw a large mass hovering in the sky above him. Needless to say, Alan's career as a police officer was effectively over after that. However, documents were discovered that showed that a neighboring police force had also registered complaints of a strange blue light in the sky that same night. Over the years, other memories slowly came back to Alan from that time. He had been abducted and questioned by a strange alien creature before finally being returned to Earth with his memory partially wiped. Number 7 is the Pascagoula abductions. The Pascagoula abduction is a famous case among UFO enthusiasts. It took place in Pascagoula, Mississippi. Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker had an unforgettable and terrifying experience in the evening of October 11th, 1973. They were fishing together on the west bank of the Pascagoula River. This was normally a serene spot, but the quiet was soon broken by a pulsating and whirring sound from above. The 2 men were blinded by the flashing lights in the sky, emanating from a huge floating object. The light paralyzed both men, and while they couldn't move, 3 humanoid creatures descended from the craft above them and subjected both men to a traumatic physical examination. They were soon returned to the banks of the river, traumatized in a strange waking dream state. To this day, both men live with PTSD over the event. Number 6 is STS-48. It's not just ordinary people who witness extraterrestrial creatures carrying out their obscure plans. NASA astronauts themselves have even questioned some of the things that they've seen while orbiting our planet. In September of 1991, a space shuttle mission known as STS-48 was in a stable orbit, releasing a satellite into space. During the flight, the astronauts on board were shocked by an unusual object that they could see through their windows. This object was not moving like a piece of rock would. It sped off at a great speed and then changed direction suddenly. The astronauts were terrified by this encounter, knowing that while in space there was no one to help them. Video of the encounter was released, and many still believe that the shuttle crew captured conclusive evidence that Earth is being visited by aliens from another world. Number 5 is Frederick Valentik. Frederick Valentik was on a training flight in a light aircraft across the Bass Strait off the Australian coast. It was October 21st, 1978, and after some flight time, Valentik contacted Melbourne Air Traffic Control with a harrowing plea. At first, he asked if there was any air traffic below him, but the traffic controller responded that there was none. And yet, Frederick Valentik claimed that there was something beneath him. He described in detail an aircraft hovering beneath him. The traffic controller asked Valentik what type of aircraft it was, and all Valentik could say was that it was a bright object, as if it were shining. Suddenly, the strange aircraft was above him. He reported this before a strange scraping sound was then heard over the airwaves, and Frederick Valentik was never heard from again. Number 4 is the green fireballs of New Mexico. Between 1948 and 1955, there was something strange in the skies above New Mexico. Hundreds of people, including military personnel, physicists, and other military scientists, witnessed strange green fireballs and floating lights in the sky. These observations were supported by many accounts from the general public who had seen the strange phenomena as well. Because the creepy lights were seen above the Los Alamos National Laboratory, where nuclear weapons were being developed, the government investigated as a matter of national security. A man named Dr. La Paz, who was a meteor expert, was brought in to look at the evidence. He concluded that the lights were not meteors, but instead some sort of radical new aircraft, technology which no country possessed at that time. Number 3 is Alan Turner. A former RAF officer came forward in 2008 to fight against the United Kingdom government's official denial of alien encounters. His name was Wing Commander Alan Turner, and he said he had been sworn to secrecy by the government in 1971. He personally tracked radar data which showed 7 unidentified aircraft speeding through British airspace. The movement of the craft, especially how quickly they ascended straight up through the atmosphere, led Turner to believe that the craft were not terrestrial in design. Turner ordered a nearby jet, which was already in the air at the time, to intercept the intruders. That pilot saw the same radar blips on his screen. Everyone involved was ordered to never repeat what they had seen ever again, and Turner claimed that many others within the British Air Force Command had similar experiences. However, they were silenced. Number 2 is Whitley Strieber. Whitley Strieber is best known for his horror novels, but the American writer also claims to have encountered aliens. Strieber states that in December of 1985, he was in a cabin in upstate New York when something disturbing happened. A group of small humanoids entered the cabin and dragged him out of bed. He was taken into a room where a needle was pierced into his head behind his ear. After a series of grueling injections and experiments, Strieber was returned to his cabin cabin traumatized. Throughout his life, Stryber had several encounters with those beings. While some are skeptical of his accounts, Stryber has sacrificed his reputation in order to maintain that these beings are real. However, what's most worrying is that the medical investigation found scars on Stryber's brain, strange lesions which had never been explained. And number 1 is the Hungarian woman. One of the strangest alien encounters on record involved an unnamed Hungarian woman. While at home on the evening of January 24th, 1992, the woman saw a spherical object appear in her kitchen. The object then began to vibrate and glow. Suddenly, an almost human figure appeared right next to the light. The Hungarian woman screamed and fled. However, a few days later, she woke up in her bed, feeling as though she was being controlled by alien intelligence. She left her house and found another floating light anomaly in the dark. After entering the anomaly, she returned to her house with strange marks across her abdomen and a sharp pain. Doctors could find no conventional explanation for how the marks even appeared on her skin, and the woman was left in fear that one day the strange light and figures would return.